Chapter 194. At this point, Lu Yuan knew that it was time for him to speak. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good if he angered Ning Fengji. Elder Long, since sect leader Ning and the Crown Prince are so kind, you should sit down. Lu Yuan's voice sounded. You're getting old. It's not good for you to keep standing. Yes, master. Since Lu Yuan had spoken, Long Xiaoyao naturally followed his instructions and sat down. As for the frenzy rhino Douluo, he was still standing. Of course, it wasn't as if he was being treated unfairly. After all, the sword Douluo was also standing. In fact, he, Ning Fengji, and Chihiro Snow were the leaders of the three factions. Long Xiaoyao, the sword Douluo, and the frenzy rhino Douluo were all subordinate. How could the subordinates sit when the leaders were talking? However, Long Xiaoyao was too strong. Ning Fengji and the others were wary of his abilities, which was why they arranged seats for him. After all, he was an ultimate Douluo. Seeing that Long Xiaoyao had sat down, Lu Yuan smiled and said, Crown Prince, sect leader Ning, I'm sorry. Elder Long is a little arrogant. Please don't blame him. Long Xiaoyao had always been arrogant. Or rather, those with dragon martial souls were all arrogant. This was the nature of dragons. Long Xiaoyao only had eyes for two people in his life. One was the woman he loved the most, the death god Douluo Yishishui. The other was his lifelong brother, the dragon god Douluo Mu'en. Besides them, he didn't have eyes for anyone else. After being summoned by Lu Yuan, he only had eyes for Lu Yuan. A person's personality wouldn't change. Haha, an expert like the Dragon Emperor has to have the personality of an expert. I understand. Ning Fengji laughed heartily. With Lu Yuan's words, the slight discomfort in his heart dissipated. He was an ultimate Douluo. Wasn't it normal for him to have a bit of a temper? Furthermore, Lu Yuan had already given him face. He couldn't ask for too much. Immediately, his attitude towards Lu Yuan improved a little. This young man looked cold, but he knew a thing or two about human affairs. Young Master Lu, this Ning will introduce someone to you, Ning Fengji said with a smile. Lu Yuan was a little confused. Rong Rong, come here. Ning Fengji waved at Ning Rongrong, and Ning Rongrong, who had been beside the sword Douluo this entire time, immediately ran over. Daddy. Ning Rongrong's crisp voice rang out. This stinky father finally remembered her. She was bored to death just now. Master Lu, this is my daughter, Ning Rongrong. Ning Fengji introduced Ning Rongrong to Lu Yuan with a hint of pride in his expression. It seemed that he was very proud to have this daughter. Hello, I'm Ning Rongrong. Ning Rongrong greeted Lu Yuan with a smile. Her words and actions were quite polite. It had to be said that although Ning Rongrong was a little witch in her bones, she was quite good at reading people's expressions. She knew who she shouldn't provoke and where she shouldn't make trouble. The aristocratic education of the Seven Treasures glazed sect could be seen in Ning Rongrong. Seeing Ning Rongrong's educated and polite appearance, Lu Yuan might have been deceived if he hadn't read the original novel. It was really quite confusing. This Ning Rongrong's acting was quite good. Hello, I'm Lu Yuan. He nodded at Ning Rongrong as a form of greeting. Ning Rongrong looked straight at Lu Yuan. In the past, she only looked at Lu Yuan from afar. Now that she was in close contact with him, she realized that Lu Yuan was really too handsome. He didn't look like a mortal at all. How could there be such a handsome person in the world? Ning Rongrong was also a face lover. In the original novel, accepting an Oscar was probably because of his good looks. Seeing his daughter staring straight at Lu Yuan, Ning Fengji felt a little embarrassed. Why was Rongrong so infatuated? He immediately coughed. Young Master Lu, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask. Sect Master Ning, please speak your mind. Lu Yuan said lightly. I see that young Master Lu is quite young, but I wonder how old young Master Lu is? Oh, young Master Lu, don't misunderstand. I'm just a little curious. Seeing that Ning Fengji, sword Douluo, and Ning Rongrong were all curious, Lu Yuan smiled and said, "It's not something that can't be said. I'm 9 years old this year, but I'll be 10 in a month. You can just treat me as if I'm 10 years old." 9 years old? You'll be 10 in a month? The three of them were shocked at the same time. Even Qian Rinxue, who already knew what was going on, pretended to be shocked. Her expression was so realistic that Lu Yuan could not help but admit that women were born actresses. Her acting skills were far from his. Ning Fengji sucked in a breath of cold air. Looking at Lu Yuan, he fell into an unprecedented shock. He was only a month away from 10 years old, but the youth opposite him was already rank 29. He even had a 1,000-year second ring, and he even had a soul bone. Furthermore, he defeated 3 soul ancestors and 4 soul elders. He really couldn't believe that he had such strength at such a young age. This was no longer something that could be described as a genius. The sword Douluo's narrowed eyes suddenly opened. His heart was also shocked. This kind of talent was just too terrifying. Ning Rongrong's mouth was also slightly open. Rank 29 at 9 years old? She was only 9 years old, but she was only rank 19. She would soon break through to rank 20, but compared to Lu Yuan, the difference was like heaven and earth. This guy was only a few months older than her. Ning Rongrong's little heart was beating non-stop. Looking at Lu Yuan, her beautiful eyes shone with a strange light. No one knew what she was thinking. Young Master Lu's talent is just too shocking. Ning Fengji's eyes were burning with passion as he looked at Lu Yuan. He had to establish a relationship with such a genius no matter what. Not to mention Long Xiaoyao, who was an ultimate Douluo. Ning Fengji didn't want to give up on Lu Yuan's talent. Sect leader Ning, you're too kind. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. Hearing this, Ning Fengji's eyelids twitched. You're too kind again. Can't you say something else? What do you want me to say? If you don't reply, how can I continue praising you? Ning Fengji was a little helpless. Ning Rongrong, on the other hand, stared at Lu Yuan without blinking after learning of Lu Yuan's age. His eyes were burning, but Lu Yuan did not react at all to his stare. He had seen such gazes many times. Seeing that Ning Fengji didn't seem to know what to say, Lu Yuan guessed that it was about time for today. There was a process to building a relationship, and it wouldn't be good to interact too much at once. He immediately stood up and said, I still have something to do today. Your Highness, sect leader Ning, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. All right, I'll see you another day, young Master Lu. Ning Fengji smiled. He didn't expect to build a relationship so quickly. After all, as long as Lu Yuan was in Heaven Do Imperial City, they would have a chance to meet Lu Yuan if they wanted to. Young Master Lu, let me send you off. Chihiro Snow stood up with a smile on his face. Chapter 195. Chihiro Snow escorted Lu Yuan all the way to the entrance of the Crown Prince's residence, and said, Young Master Lu, I'll see you off here. Take care. He winked at Lu Yuan as he spoke, and a hint of information flashed through his eyes. Seeing this, Lu Yuan laughed bitterly in his heart. It seems that what will come will come. There's no way to avoid it. Thank you for seeing me off, Your Highness, Lu Yuan said as he raised 3 fingers before turning to depart. Chihiro Snow's eyes flashed at the sight of Lu Yuan's gesture. Seeing as Lu Yuan had left, there was naturally no need for Ning Fengji to stay any longer. He also departed from the Crown Prince's residence with the sword Douluo and Ning Rongrong after Lu Yuan. After seeing Ning Fengji off, Chihiro Snow returned to his study and sat down in silence for a while before rising to his feet and making his way toward the Imperial Palace. At the Star Blue Hotel, Lu Yuan appraised the vast sea cosmic shroud in his hand with a peculiar smile on his face. It had to be said that this vast sea cosmic shroud was an inheritance treasure of the sea god, and it was indeed quite extraordinary. Perhaps it was because of the clear air divine seed, but Lu Yuan could clearly sense the immense power imbued within this vast sea cosmic shroud. The vast sea cosmic shroud was emanating a gentle blue light that dyed the entire hotel room blue, and it was extremely dazzling. Even Lu Yuan had to admit that this vast sea cosmic shroud looked like a work of art. Should I drip a drop of blood on it to claim ownership? Lu Yuan didn't want to end up like Tang San in the original novel, where the vast sea cosmic shroud had a gash on his head. Instead, he took the initiative to cut open his finger, and a drop of reddish-golden blood dripped onto the vast sea cosmic shroud. The drop of blood fused into the vast sea cosmic shroud, and a faint trace of blood also appeared within the translucent triangular surface. A slightly illusory figure drifted out from within the vast sea cosmic shroud, appraising Lu Yuan down below. What a pure bloodline and domineering constitution. It's more than enough to withstand the power of the vast sea. After so many years, I've finally found a suitable successor. The voice was old and calm, and the faint shadow floated above Lu Yuan's head, quietly watching him. All of a sudden, Lu Yuan seemed to have sensed something, and he raised his head slightly. The elderly figure's heart jolted upon seeing this, and he disappeared into the vast sea cosmic shroud once again. Lu Yuan saw nothing, but he was still quite confused. He had clearly sensed that someone was spying on him just then. One had to realize that ever since he obtained the clear Qi divine seed, his spiritual sense had reached an astonishing level. Clear Qi was the foundation of the heavens, and Lu Yuan had cultivated the Clear Qi scripture and possessed the power of the Clear Qi divine seed. Even if he couldn't achieve the legendary unity of heaven and man, he wasn't far off, so his spiritual sense was definitely unimaginably sensitive. He had sensed that someone was spying on him just then, and there was no mistaking that feeling. As such, it could only be that someone's cultivation base was too high for him to detect. Is it that old geezer, the sea god? Lu Yuan murmured in his heart. No ordinary person would be able to evade the detection of his polychoria, so it had to be a wisp of the sea god's spiritual sense within the vast sea cosmic shroud. The sea god's illusory figure appeared within the vast sea cosmic shroud, and he looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of astonishment on his face. This kid's senses are quite sharp. To think that he could detect my presence. How interesting. This successor seems to be quite good, and he has a chance to inherit my position. The sea god murmured to himself in a low voice. Then, the figure disappeared again. The vast sea cosmic shroud suddenly flashed with brilliant light, and it hovered in midair before stopping in front of Lu Yuan's glabella. A burst of blue light enshrouded Lu Yuan's entire body, and Lu Yuan's entire body shuddered as a massive amount of information instantly flowed into Lu Yuan's mind through his spiritual sense. The scenery before Lu Yuan's eyes suddenly changed. He was greeted by a boundless expanse of blue sky and azure seas. Beneath his feet was a surging ocean, while above his head was a clear, cloudless sky for thousands of kilometers. A cool and refreshing sensation flowed into his mind, and a series of information regarding the vast sea cosmic shroud instantly appeared in Lu Yuan's mind. Lu Yuan naturally learned how to use the vast sea cosmic shroud, as well as its various miraculous abilities. Lu Yuan's eyes were tightly shut as he carefully sensed the various miraculous abilities of the vast sea cosmic shroud. Meanwhile, the vast sea cosmic shroud rotated incessantly in front of Lu Yuan's glabella. All of a sudden, blue light flashed from the vast sea cosmic shroud, and it disappeared directly into Lu Yuan's glabella. Lu Yuan's heart jolted with shock, and he instantly opened his eyes, upon which a sharp light shone from within his dual pupils. The vast sea cosmic shroud had directly entered Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. The projection of the sea god appeared within the vast sea cosmic shroud as he looked down at the vast golden ocean beneath his feet. So this is this kid's sea of consciousness? It really is quite impressive. Let me remodel it for him. The sea god chuckled, and dazzling blue light surged forth from the vast sea cosmic shroud, painting the golden ocean with a layer of blue light. The blue light surged forth like a tidal wave, and Lu Yuan felt a cool and refreshing sensation in his mind. His spiritual power was slowly becoming more powerful. Even though it wasn't by much, it was still a noticeable improvement. Furthermore, the blue light was still surging toward all parts of his body, and his golden dragon battle armor and atlas palm bone seemed to be slowly undergoing some unknown changes. However, not only was Lu Yuan not happy, but his expression had also darkened. His greatest secret lay within his sea of consciousness. Not only did he have the clear air divine seed, but he also had the god-slaying spear. He wasn't sure if these two items would attract the attention of the sea god. The clear air divine seed was still manageable, as it had no elemental divine power. Even the heavenly life goddess couldn't recognize it, and the sea god was most likely confused as well. However, the god-slaying spear was a little troublesome. Its aura was powerful enough to kill gods, and perhaps the sea god would be wary of it. After all, the god-slaying spear martial soul was far too unique and heaven-defying. What is this white light? It's repelling my vast sea power? The projection of the sea god was a little confused as he watched the clear air divine seed's white light keep the vast sea cosmic shroud's blue light at bay. One had to realize that his vast sea power was genuine divine power. How could there be something that could contend with it? The sea god's interest was piqued, and he continued to control the vast sea cosmic shroud to advance. TSK, this white light is quite strong, but no one is controlling it, so it can't stop me. The sea god controlled the vast sea cosmic shroud to destroy the white light around it as he continued to advance. Although the white light emitted by the clear air divine seed was powerful, it was only the outermost layer of the clear air divine seed's power, and no one was controlling it. However, the sea god had the vast sea cosmic shroud, and with the help of the boundless divine power of the sea god, he finally managed to squeeze into the core area of Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. So, it's a divine seed? No wonder this kid is so lucky. However, this divine seed is quite strange. Its divine power has no elemental attribute. Although it's powerful, it's not very useful. The sea god shook his head. Although the level of this divine seed's power seemed to have surpassed his sea god seat, what kind of deity seat could it condense without any elemental attributes? Therefore, although it was powerful, it was useless. The projection of the sea god looked around, and the vast sea power continued to surge out, further transforming Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. Suddenly, the sea god's power paused as it probed into a black domain. What's this? The sea god was startled. He wanted to move closer, but before he could do anything, an overwhelming killing intent instantly enveloped him. His projection was actually unable to move in the slightest under the might of this force. Chapter 196. An overwhelming murderous aura surged towards the sea god, and an aura that caused heaven and earth to tremble instantly enveloped the sea god's projection. What is this? The sea god was shocked. This murderous aura was far more terrifying than the Azura god's killing power. Even he couldn't help but tremble under this murderous aura. This is definitely an aura above the godly king level. The sea god's projection was shocked. Who is this kid? He actually has such power. No, I have to contact my main body quickly. An aura above the godly king level has appeared. I have to send this news to the Godly Realm Committee. The sea god controlled his godly power and prepared to contact his main body in the godly realm. However, the sea god tried for a long time, but it was to no avail. Oh no, the connection has been cut off. I can't send the news out. The sea god looked at the white light that had surrounded him again. This non-elemental soul power that he didn't care about seemed to have sealed the entire heaven and earth and cut off his connection with his main body. Oh no, this godly seed is a little strange. The sea goddess let loose a cry of surprise, and she immediately prepared to use the vast sea cosmic barrier to forcefully break through the seal. However, right at this moment, an inky black spear that was glowing with crimson light pierced directly toward her. It was none other than the god-slaying spear. The god-slayer's spear's sharp intent made the sea god's projection feel the aura of death. No! Amid sea god's mournful wails, the god-slayer's spear pierced through sea god's phantom. Immediately, sea god's phantom vanished. Only the vast sea cosmic shroud was left spinning in the air. After killing the sea god's projection, the god-slayer's spear shook a little before flying back. It left after killing the sea god without any hesitation. It was indeed the cold and aloof god-slayer's spear. Once the god-slayer's spear left, the clear aura and godly power surged forward. Endless white light enveloped the vast sea cosmic shroud and suppressed the blue light of the vast sea cosmic shroud. The white light started to penetrate the vast sea cosmic shroud. Lu Yuan's spiritual power had just entered his sea of consciousness when he saw the god-slayer's spear piercing through the sea god's projection. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. As expected of the god-slaying spear, it would slay a deity just because of a disagreement. However, the sea god, that fool, was also courting death. He actually dared to provoke the god-slaying spear. Wasn't that the same as carrying a lantern to the toilet? Was he looking for trouble? Did they really think that the god-slaying spear's name was just for show? He actually used the power of the vast ocean to test it. One had to know that even the clear Qi divine seed would have to shrink its tail and act like a grandson in front of the god-slaying spear. You're just a projection of the sea god, but you're pretty arrogant. Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. But that wasn't a bad thing. The death of the sea god's shadow meant that a hidden danger had been removed. He didn't have to worry about his secret being exposed. As for whether or not Neptune's main body would find out about him, Lu Yuan was not worried. With the divine power of the clear air god seed, Neptune's main body would not be able to receive any information at all. Suddenly, a golden light spot flashed from the white light of the clear air spirit seed, and instantly sank into Lu Yuan's spiritual power. What's this? Lu Yuan only felt that there was something extra in his mind. When he sensed it carefully, he realized that it was some incomplete information. Sea God's 13 halberds? Lu Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. Sensing the incomplete information, Lu Yuan muttered to himself, "Only 4 moves?" Sensing the incomplete information, it was the divinity light spot left after the sea god's shadow was killed by the god-slaying spear. It contained some of sea god's remaining memories. Lu Yuan's luck wasn't bad. He actually obtained 4 moves from the sea god's 13 halberds. Although it wasn't complete, it was sufficient. They were the first move, Unpredictable Storm; the second move, 1,000 Years of Solitude; the third move, Never Return; and the 13th move, Body and Halberd as One, Stars Shift. The most basic first move, Unpredictable Storm, and the strongest move, Body and Halberd as One, Stars Shift, are both here. My luck isn't bad. Sensing the 4 moves of the sea god's halberd art in his mind, even with Lu Yuan's temperament, he couldn't help but smile. This time, he had picked up a big bargain. The sea god's 13 halberds was sea god's most famous consummate skill. It was also the foundation of sea god's survival, and its power was astonishing. In the original work, just the first 3 moves had greatly increased Tang San's combat power. It had to be said that the sea god's 13 halberds were really good stuff. Although Lu Yuan didn't use a halberd, the spear and halberd were both long weapons and had some similarities. Lu Yuan was sure that the sea god's 13 halberds would be much more powerful in his hands than in Tang San's. After all, Tang San used a hammer and had nothing to do with a weapon like a halberd. Lu Yuan was different. He had practiced the spear since he was young, and the original halberd was developed from the foundation of the spear. Moreover, Tang San hadn't even comprehended the concept of martial arts. Lu Yuan's current attainments in the way of the spear had already reached the peak of the 2nd realm, Spear Force. He was only a step away from the 3rd realm, Spear Intent. How could Tang-san compare to him? But why does the sea god's 13 halberds give me a familiar feeling? Lu Yuan pondered over the 4 moves of the sea god's 13 halberds in his mind. He felt that it was a little familiar, especially the concept of the vast ocean. That's right, the vast ocean spear art. Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something. That's right, wasn't that familiar feeling similar to the vast ocean spear art? It was just that the concept of the vast ocean in the vast ocean spear art was much inferior to the concept of the sea god's 13 halberds, but it was indeed very similar. Stupid system, is this your doing? Lu Yuan secretly contacted the system and asked. System. All right, I knew you wouldn't have any reaction. Lu Yuan secretly said. He was more clear about the system's character. Most of the time, it wouldn't reply to any of his questions. However, the sea god's 13 halberds is much more profound than the vast ocean spear art, as expected of the sea god's divine skill. However, with the foundation of the vast ocean spear art, it doesn't seem that difficult to learn it. Lu Yuan secretly thought. He was currently at the peak of the spear force realm. However, if he could gain some comprehension from the sea god's 13 halberds, he might be able to enter the realm of spear intent. This is a huge profit. It's all thanks to the sea god, that silly old man. Lu Yuan chuckled. With the 4 moves of the sea god's halberds in his hands, his combat power would increase by a lot. How could he not be happy? In the realm of the gods, in the endless sea, this was where the sea god's temple was located. The sea god's strength was very strong. He was a first-grade main god, just below the 5 great divine kings. Even among the main gods, he was one of the best. The sea god's trident was a super-divine weapon that only the divine kings could possess. In the realm of the gods, below the divine kings, there were very few first-grade gods who possessed a super-divine weapon. The sea god was one of them. Chapter 197. It was also because of his strength that the sea god had a relatively high status in the god realm. In the sea god's temple, the sea god's huge figure suddenly opened his eyes, a trace of shock on his face. The divine will I left in the sea god's heart has actually disappeared. Furthermore, the sea god's heart doesn't seem to be able to sense it either. The sea god's face was filled with doubt. One had to know that his divine will wasn't like the Azura god or the angel god, which had been summoned many times. It had long since disappeared. He was the kind of person who had extremely high requirement. Only the person he chose could trigger his divine will, and after so many years, his divine will had never been triggered. How could it suddenly disappear without a trace? The sea god was puzzled. Furthermore, the sea god's heart, an important item used to pass down the sea god's deity's position, could not be sensed. The sea god immediately became anxious. It's a pity that Azura is too stubborn, and I can't go down personally. This is a little troublesome. The sea god muttered to himself. Forget it, I'll send a message to the Pasizi and ask her to find out what's going on. Even if she can't find out, it's not a big problem. Fortunately, I still had a trick up my sleeve. The sea god softly muttered to himself. Even if the sea god's heart really can't be found, as long as I have the whale pearl in the deep-sea monster whale king's mind, I can still reforge the sea god's heart. Back then, I spared this bastard's life, and it really did come in handy one day. However, it's also very necessary to ask the Pasizi to investigate, the sea god said. Suddenly, the sea god's expression turned serious, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. I want to know who swallowed my sea god's heart. Could it be the work of a god in the god realm? Are you afraid that your successor will be a threat, so you deliberately disturbed my inheritance? You'd better not let me know who you are, or else. The sea god's voice was low, but it was filled with bone-chilling coldness. Night fell. Looking at the dark sky outside, Lu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. It was already the second night watch and he could set off. Shui was definitely waiting for him. Elder Long, Senior Wild Rhino, let's go, Lu Yuan said softly. Just as he finished speaking, Old Carefree and the frenzy Rhino Douluo appeared beside him. My lord. Master Yuan. The two of them bowed together. Let's go, Lu Yuan said with a smile, then turned around and went out. Yes. The two of them followed behind Lu Yuan. Out of the hotel, at a deserted corner. Master, are we just going to walk in so openly? Long Xiaoyao was surprised as he asked. Is Master going to walk in so openly without concealing himself? Of course. Lu Yuan smiled and said, I know what you're thinking. Look. Lu Yuan waved his right hand slightly, and the vast sea cosmic shroud flew out from his glabella and landed in Lu Yuan's hand. Gentle blue light instantly surged out, forming a transparent barrier that enshrouded the three of them. The two only felt that everything around them had turned into a blue world, but they could still see the outside world clearly. However, the three figures instantly disappeared around the corner. From the outside, they couldn't see anything at all. Their figures and even their auras were completely concealed by the cover. This is? Long Xiaoyao and the frenzy Rhino Douluo were stunned as they looked at the vast sea cosmic shroud in Lu Yuan's right hand. This is one of the uses of the vast sea cosmic shroud. It can conceal one's figure and aura. How is it? Not bad, right? With this item, we can walk in openly, Lu Yuan said. No wonder you asked for this vast sea cosmic shroud from the Heaven Do imperial family. It seems to be extraordinary, the frenzy Rhino Douluo said. Didn't you hear what Master Yuan said? This is only one of its uses. There must be other uses. How can something like this not be a treasure? However, even though he was curious, the frenzy Rhino Douluo didn't ask. This was because he knew what to ask and what not to ask. Master Yuan was different from before. He wasn't the only one beside him. There was a powerful figure beside him. The frenzy Rhino Douluo couldn't afford to offend this person. Therefore, he had to do his part. Congratulations on obtaining a treasure, my lord, Long Xiaoyao said. Let's go. Lu Yuan held the vast sea cosmic shroud as the three of them walked along the main road. They walked openly towards the Crown Prince's mansion. As he felt the vast sea cosmic shroud in his hand, Lu Yuan sensed that it seemed a little different from before. It seemed to be easier to use. Could it be because the Godslayer's spear had destroyed the sea god's consciousness? Lu Yuan thought to himself. In fact, Lu Yuan was wrong. The vast sea cosmic shroud was so obedient now, but it had nothing to do with the sea god's consciousness being destroyed. The main reason was that the clear energy god's power had entered the sea god's heart and refined it. Therefore, it was easier for Lu Yuan to control the vast sea cosmic shroud. The clear energy god's power contained the power of laws. The power of laws was contained in all things. It couldn't be easier to change the restrictions and methods left behind by the sea god in the sea god's heart. After all, even the sea god's power of the vast sea was only a small part of the things governed by the power of laws. If the sea god's heart had an owner, the clear energy god's seed wouldn't be able to do anything to it. After all, the sea god's projection had been destroyed, and the sea god's heart was no longer under anyone's control. Therefore, the clear energy god's power directly entered the sea god's heart and refined it from the outside to the inside. It could be said that the vast sea cosmic shroud was no longer under the sea god's control. It only had Lu Yuan as its owner now. It was a personal item. Even if it was handed over to the sea god wouldn't be able to control it. The power of laws was just that domineering. Of course, Lu Yuan didn't know any of this. However, it didn't stop him from feeling happy. Crown Prince's mansion. Lu Yuan and the other two suddenly appeared in the Crown Prince's mansion. Chihiro's snow was guarded by the snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo. When the three of them appeared, the two of them sensed them. Of course, they were there because Lu Yuan had removed the vast sea cosmic shroud. Who's there? The snake spear Douluo shouted as he suddenly appeared. When he saw Lu Yuan's familiar figure, he immediately relaxed. So it's young Master Yuan. I thought it was an assassin. Young Master Yuan, please. Young Master Yuan has been waiting for a long time. All right. Lu Yuan nodded gently and followed behind the snake spear Douluo. Young Master Yuan, we're here. The snake spear Douluo stopped in a room. Where is this? As he looked at the room in front of him, Lu Yuan felt that something was wrong. This isn't the way to the study, right? This is young master's room. The snake spear Douluo said. Room? Lu Yuan immediately thought of many things. Chapter 198. Elder Long, Elder Wild Rhino, the two of you can wait outside. Lu Yuan turned around and said to Long Xiaoyao and the frenzy Rhino Douluo. Yes, master. Yes, young Master Yuan. Lu Yuan nodded. After that, he pushed open the door and walked in. Creak. Lu Yuan closed the door and walked in. There was a screen outside Cher's room. There were intricate patterns of fishes and birds on it. Lu Yuan walked around the screen. There was a huge bed inside. Chihiro Snow was sitting on the edge of the bed. His back was facing Lu Yuan. When he heard footsteps behind him, Chihiro Snow's pleasant voice sounded, You're here. Yes. Lu Yuan acknowledged softly. After that, he quickly walked towards Chihiro Snow. Cher. Lu Yuan called out softly. Chihiro Snow turned around and revealed an almost perfect face. The purity and holiness of an angel was vividly displayed on Chihiro Snow's body. Lu Yuan was stunned at first glance. Shui was actually using her original appearance. Cher, why didn't you disguise yourself? Lu Yuan asked. Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan and said, Would you let me wear a disguise when I'm with you? No. Lu Yuan laughed. After that, he understood. When he was alone with Chihiro Snow, he naturally wanted to see Cher's beautiful face. Who wanted to see Shui Qinghe's ugly face? Although he looked all right and had a scholarly aura, he still had a man's face. When he saw Chihiro Snow's face, Lu Yuan felt a little uncomfortable. Especially when he wanted to take advantage of her. Then why are you asking this question? Chihiro Snow rolled his eyes. That moment of flirtation was truly captivating. Lu Yuan took a few steps forward and stood in front of Chihiro Snow. He gently held Chihiro Snow's hand and held it in his palm. Shui-er's hand was soft and warm, and it felt surprisingly good to the touch. When Lu Yuan held her hand, Chihiro Snow glanced at him helplessly. However, she didn't retract her hand. They had kissed many times. Holding hands was no longer embarrassing for Chihiro Snow. Shui, is the situation all right now? Lu Yuan asked as he gently pinched the soft cloth in his hand and looked into Qianrenshue's beautiful eyes. The situation now is not bad. Avalanche was beaten 20 times by the Snow Knight Emperor and imprisoned in the prince's residence. Prince Xuexing was also punished by the Snow Knight Emperor. His influence in the Heaven Do Imperial Academy has almost been completely wiped out. Now, the entire Heaven Do Imperial Academy is under my control. Furthermore, the Snowy Knight Emperor is quite satisfied with my performance this time. My position is now more and more stable, and my prestige has also increased a lot. Among the ministers who were originally neutral, there are also many who intend to submit to me. Stinky Guy, your plan has succeeded, Chihiro Snow said softly. Lu Yuan lightly nodded and reached out to touch Chihiro Snow's face. It was warm and smooth to the touch. Chihiro Snow unhappily glared at Lu Yuan. This guy likes to take advantage of me whenever I'm with him. However, I don't seem to dislike this feeling. Instead, I have an indescribable expectation in my heart. This is really strange. Then what about Ningfengji? Lu Yuan asked softly. Now that your position is becoming more and more stable, does that old fox not have any thoughts of placing a bet on you? According to the current situation, if something happens to the Snow Knight Emperor, the only one who can inherit the throne is you. That old fox should be able to see that. According to his personality, it's impossible for him to not do anything. Ning Fengji actually supports my idea. However, he said a lot, but it's all just words. There's no actual expression. Chihiro Snow said. That old fox is still so cautious. It seems like he still has some misgivings in his heart. Lu Yuan said. However, there's no rush. Take it step by step. With your current situation, you'll be able to control the Heaven Do Empire sooner or later. By the way, Cher, have you poisoned the Snow Knight Emperor? Lu Yuan asked. And it's a slow-acting poison. However, it's extremely poisonous. There's no antidote. The Snow Knight Emperor will definitely die sooner or later. However, it might take a few years. Chihiro Snow said. There's no antidote? Lu Yuan shook his head and said, everything in the world has its own antidote. There's no poison that can't be cured. Cher, don't be too careless. As he spoke, Lu Yuan recalled the original plot. The poison that Shui used was a poison specially developed by the Polisi clan. It was a very strange mixture of poisons. Neither Dugubo nor Tang San could cure it, but the Polisi clan's patriarch, Yang Wudi, could. This was a hidden danger. He had to think of a way to get rid of it. Lu Yuan couldn't allow any accidents to happen to Cher. And after hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow nodded. Indeed, Lu Yuan's words made sense. Lu Yuan smiled and gently wrapped his arm around Qian Renshua's waist, pulling her into his embrace. The two of them hugged tightly for a while. Chihiro Snow sighed and said, Rascal, don't you have anything to say to me about the Dragon Emperor Douluo? Lu Yuan was stunned. Indeed, he still had to face this problem. Cher, come, let's sit down and talk. Lu Yuan pulled Chihiro Snow to sit down. Come, tell me. I'm listening. Chihiro Snow sat down and stared at Lu Yuan with her beautiful eyes. Then, Cher, where do you want to start? Lu Yuan asked. Everything. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan and said, I'll be lenient if you confess, but I'll be strict if you resist. I want to know the whole story. Don't leave out anything. I'll be lenient if I confess. Lu Yuan sighed and said, All right, then I'll tell you about Elder Long. I'll have to start from my martial soul and bloodline. Martial soul and bloodline? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan curiously. Yes, you know that my martial soul is the Golden Dragon, Lu Yuan said. Qian Renshua nodded her head. She was well aware of this. She had experienced the power of Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon martial soul. It was definitely not inferior to her six-winged angel martial soul. But when did Lu Yuan have another bloodline? She knew nothing about it. Actually, other than my Golden Dragon martial soul, I also have a pure Golden Dragon bloodline, Lu Yuan said softly. Why don't I know about this? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan. Because my Golden Dragon bloodline only awakened after you left. I didn't know about it before that. With that, Lu Yuan explained the process of his bloodline awakening to Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow listened and nodded from time to time. So that's how it is. Your bloodline actually broke through the shackles and completely awakened under the pressure of the golden crocodile. Chihiro Snow said softly. Her tone was relieved. This happened after she left. This meant that this rascal didn't hide it from her. Chihiro Snow felt much better. However, she still had questions. Then, what does this have to do with the Dragon Emperor Douluo? Chapter 199. Hearing Chihiro Snow's question, Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, Do you know what Elder Long's martial soul is? Chihiro Snow tapped her delicate chin with her slender fingers and said, It should be a dragon martial soul. Since his title is the Dragon Emperor and he has reached the level of an ultimate Douluo, his martial soul must not be weak. I think it should not be inferior to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon. Haha! Lu Yuan chuckled and nodded gently at Chihiro Snow's delicate nose. Under the latter's reproachful gaze, he said, What is the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon? Elder Long's martial soul is the darkness holy dragon with pure dragon bloodline. In today's continent, besides me and you, there is almost no one whose martial soul is superior to his, including your grandfather. Cher, if I'm not wrong, your six-winged angel should be different from the great consecrator's six-winged angel martial soul, right? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. Chihiro Snow nodded. She was chosen by the angel god. Her martial soul was stronger than Sendoryu and Chihiro disease. Darkness holy dragon. Chihiro Snow said softly with a trace of surprise in her voice because she did not know much about this martial soul. The darkness holy dragon controls the ultimate power of darkness. It is an ultimate martial soul, but it is slightly stronger than ordinary ultimate martial souls because it has pure dragon bloodline. It is worthy of being called a superb martial soul, Lu Yuan said with a smile. All ultimate martial souls were superb. This was an iron law. The ultimate martial soul was one of the most representative superb martial souls. Lu Yuan's golden dragon was also an ultimate martial soul, but it had ultimate power. If you don't know much about the Darkness Holy Dragon, then I think you should be familiar with the name Golden Holy Dragon. Lu Yuan said softly. Golden Holy Dragon? I know. Chihiro Snow nodded. She had heard of this martial soul before. It was quite famous among beast souls. It was said that there was a golden iron triangle in the world of soul masters, and their martial soul fusion skill was the Golden Holy Dragon. The so-called Golden Holy Dragon actually has another name, and that is the Radiant Holy Dragon. It controls the ultimate power of light, and it happens to be one light and one darkness with the Darkness Holy Dragon. Both of them are of the same level. Lu Yuan said. I see. Chihiro Snow muttered softly. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, she finally understood how powerful the Darkness Holy Dragon was. Just as Lu Yuan had said, apart from her and Lu Yuan, no one else in the Douluo continent had a martial soul that was stronger than Long Xiaoyao's. The Darkness Holy Dragon is indeed a very powerful martial spirit, Chihiro Snow said. Lu Yuan giggled and said, no matter how powerful the Darkness Holy Dragon is, it will still be suppressed by my Golden Dragon. You're the only powerful one, aren't you? Chihiro Snow slapped Lu Yuan's arm in amusement, and the corner of her mouth curled into a smile. Indeed, Lu Yuan's Golden Dragon was the best beast soul in the world, and it could suppress almost all other beast souls. You still haven't told me how you met the Dragon Emperor Douluo, and why he calls you Lord. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a serious expression. An ultimate Douluo was no small matter, so she had to find out more before she could be at ease. Furthermore, she hoped that there were no secrets between her and Lu Yuan. She didn't want this man in front of her to hide anything from her, because this man in front of her knew everything about her. She also hoped that she could know everything about him. She was very afraid, because Lu Yuan, whom she thought she had already seen through, was shrouded in a layer of fog. This made Chihiro Snow a little worried. She had finally experienced the feeling of being loved, and she didn't want to lose it. Therefore, she wanted to hold Lu Yuan tightly in her hands. Chihiro Snow was different from other girls. She had experienced a lot of pain since she was young, and she had developed a pretty good mind and skills. However, she lacked love since she was young, so she cherished every relationship she had. Lu Yuan had already entered her heart, and she wanted to hold on to this love between her and Lu Yuan. She didn't want to lose it. Therefore, she cared a lot about everything related to Lu Yuan, just like how Lu Yuan cared about everything about her. It was because she loved him that she valued him. To Chihiro Snow, it wasn't important how Long Xiaoyao came about. She only wanted Lu Yuan to give her a reasonable explanation. She wanted to prove that Lu Yuan cared a lot about her, and that was her true goal. Speaking of which, it's a little coincidental. Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, that day, I was oppressed by the golden crocodile, and I awakened the golden dragon's bloodline. The golden dragon's bloodline is extremely noble. Others might not be able to sense it, but it's not difficult for those who possess dragon martial souls, especially soul masters with pure dragon bloodlines, to sense it. Not long after I returned that day, I went to the plum garden to practice my spear as usual. Chihiro Snow listened softly. When she heard Lu Yuan mention the plum garden, a look of gentleness flashed across her eyes. That was the place where she met Lu Yuan. To her, the plum garden was the happiest time of her life. When I was in the mood to practice the spear, the power in my blood began to circulate involuntarily. After I finished practicing a set of spear techniques, I discovered that an elder had appeared not far away from me. That elder was Elder Long, Lu Yuan said softly. Chihiro Snow opened her red lips slightly. When Elder Long saw me, he sized me up. In the end, he took the initiative to acknowledge me as his master. He insisted that I was the person they had been waiting for a long time, and that I was destined to recreate the glory of the dragon god. I was really stunned then. Lu Yuan laughed bitterly as he said, "What?" Chihiro Snow opened her beautiful eyes wide and said, "Doesn't this mean that the Dragon Emperor Douluo is similar to the angels? Didn't the angels also wait for 10,000 years for someone who could inherit the position of an angel? Recreating the glory of the angels and spreading the glory of the angels across the entire continent was very similar to what Long Xiaoyao had described." "Maybe." Lu Yuan spread out his hands and said, "That's all I know. Elder Long has been by my side since that day until he appeared this time. You should know the rest." Chihiro Snow stared intently at Lu Yuan and said softly, "Rascal, I feel that your background isn't simple. The Golden Dragon martial soul and the Golden Dragon bloodline aren't things that ordinary people can possess." "Maybe." Lu Yuan laughed softly and said, "No matter what secrets my identity may have, I'm now a member of the Martial Soul Palace. I'm also the Lu Yuan who loves you. That's enough." "Okay." Chihiro Snow nodded gently before burrowing into Lu Yuan's embrace. "Rascal, don't let me down," Chihiro Snow muttered softly. As Lu Yuan's identity became stranger and stranger, she became more and more worried. She and Lu Yuan were originally very compatible. However, Lu Yuan had obtained a divine seed and was favored by a god. After that, an ultimate Douluo like Long Xiaoyao had submitted to him. Furthermore, the dragon god was involved. Chihiro Snow was a little worried. Lu Yuan's status had risen, and she wondered if he would look down on her in the future. Chapter 200. If not for the fact that love was the most wonderful thing in the world, even a proud daughter of heaven like Chihiro Snow would be no different from an ordinary girl after being tainted by love. She would also let her imagination run wild because of her feelings, be worried and afraid that her lover would not want her anymore. Seeing that Chihiro Snow also had such worries, Lu Yuan could not help but laugh involuntarily. Chihiro Snow's talent and beauty were 1 in a million, and she was the first person in the original work to become a god. In this Douluo continent, was there any woman nobler and more outstanding than Chihiro Snow? Even Bibidon could not surpass Chihiro Snow. Therefore, Chihiro Snow did not have to worry at all, because there was no one more outstanding than her. "Oh, that's not right, there seems to be one more, but she is not a human, so she should not be counted," Lu Yuan thought to himself. Lu Yuan gently stroked Chihiro Snow's golden hair and said softly, "Don't worry, Cher, I would rather betray the world than betray you. In this life, you are destined to be mine, you can't run away." And Chihiro Snow nodded, feeling rather moved. Not only did she not reject Lu Yuan's domineering behavior, she even liked it. Lying quietly in Lu Yuan's arms, this feeling of having someone to rely on was really good. No matter how outstanding Chihiro Snow was, no matter how decisive she was still a woman in the end. She also hoped that there would be a man who could give her warmth and support when she was tired. Fortunately, she found such a man. He treated her like a pearl and a treasure, helped her share her burdens, and thought of her in everything he did. She really did not have much resistance against such a person, and she slowly fell into his arms. Looking at Chihiro Snow in his arms, Lu Yuan lowered his head slightly. Woo! Their lips met, and Lu Yuan kissed to his heart's content. Chihiro Snow's eyes were filled with deep affection, and she passionately responded to Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan tightly hugged the person in his arms. Chihiro Snow's body was very soft, and it was very comfortable to hug. Lu Yuan gently hugged Chihiro Snow's waist and kissed her hard. After a long time, their lips parted. Chihiro Snow's face was a little red, and her hands were wrapped around Lu Yuan's neck. The two were very close. Lu Yuan's face. Lu gently stroked Chihiro Snow's face. Chihiro Snow's face. Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow. Qian Renshue carefully examined Lu Yuan's flawless face. Lu Yuan's appearance was rare in the world, and sometimes Qian Renshue would be entranced just by looking at him. After all, men weren't the only ones who would drool over a woman's beauty. Sometimes, women would drool over a man's beauty as well. Smelly guy, he's really handsome, Chihiro Snow thought to himself. But this guy is so handsome, he must be a womanizer. Chihiro Snow suddenly thought of something. Stinking brat! He called out softly. Cher, what's the matter? Lu Yuan asked softly. Will you only love me for the rest of your life? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan expectantly. Hearing this, Lu Yuan was stunned and then fell silent. He didn't want to lie to Cher. His senior sister and Zhu Qing were already existences that he couldn't bear to part with. Seeing that Lu Yuan was silent, the anticipation on Chihiro Snow's pretty face disappeared without a trace and was replaced by a faint sense of loss. Cher, I'm sorry. Lu Yuan felt a little ashamed. Is it Hulina? Chihiro Snow asked faintly. Lu Yuan raised his head with a look of surprise on his face. Cher, how did you know? He was sure that Sendoria hadn't told Cher about the matter between Hulina and Zhu Qing. Otherwise, Cher would have already flared up the moment they met and wouldn't have waited until now to ask this question. I guessed right, it's really her, Chihiro Snow said indifferently. Other than her, you won't be able to come into contact with any other girl. As expected of a vixen, she actually took advantage of my absence to secretly take you down. Chihiro Snow was a little angry. This Hulina actually took advantage of her absence to steal him. This was too much. Hearing this, Lu Yuan fell silent. Lu Yuan. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a serious expression. If you had to choose between her and me, who would you choose? I don't choose one, I want both, Lu Yuan said. You. Chihiro Snow stared fiercely at Lu Yuan. Cher. Lu Yuan pulled Chihiro Snow's jade hand and looked at Chihiro Snow with gentle eyes. After looking at each other for a long time, Chihiro Snow sighed softly and said, Fine, I won't make things difficult for you. I have a request. Facing Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow finally took a step back. No matter what, she couldn't really fall out with Lu Yuan. She had already fallen deeply in love with Lu Yuan and couldn't give up. Since she couldn't give up, she could only compromise. Cher, you say it. Lu Yuan smiled and looked at Chihiro Snow. I want to make it big, Chihiro Snow said. Okay. Lu Yuan agreed immediately. Chihiro Snow was the first. First come, first serve. There was nothing wrong with making it big. That's more like it. Hearing Lu Yuan agree to her request without hesitation, Chihiro Snow's expression became much better. This stinky guy still loved her more after all. Seeing that Chihiro Snow didn't seem to be angry anymore, Lu Yuan mustered up his courage. Cher, there's something I want to tell you. Say it. Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. Actually, there's one more, Lu Yuan said while looking at Chihiro Snow's expression. Stinky fellow, go and die. Chihiro Snow was stunned for a moment. After that, a frightening strength surged out. Ah! From Qian Rinshue's boudoir, Lu Yuan's blood-curdling scream rang out. Outside the room, the four titled Douluo were shocked when they heard the screams from inside. Nothing bad happened, right? The frenzy rhino Douluo asked. The snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo shrugged at the same time, indicating that they didn't know either. Long Xiaoyao extended his spiritual power. There was a weird expression on his face. He coughed and said, "Nothing's wrong. We'll just wait outside." Hearing this, the other three titled Douluo nodded. Since this elder said so, it shouldn't be a big deal. As he recalled what he had just experienced, Long Xiaoyao sighed in his heart. "Master, there's a price to pay for being fickle." As he spoke, he turned around. Long Xiaoyao didn't have the right to interfere with his master's relationship. He only had to listen to her orders. Hiss! Lu Yuan touched the bruises on his face. They were caused by Chihiro Snow's punches. Cher was really angry. She even used her power of purification. Lu Yuan didn't dare to retaliate, so his face was bruised. Fortunately, he had the clear aura god power and the power of the ocean from the sea god's heart. He quickly dispelled the power of purification from his bruises. After the power of purification was dispelled, the bruises on his face naturally disappeared. Instantly, the handsome Lu Yuan was back. Lu Yuan patted the dust off his body and lifted his head slightly. Not far away, Chihiro Snow was glaring at him. Chapter 201. Share. Lu Yuan smiled awkwardly. Humph. Chihiro Snow snorted coldly. Hee hee. Lu Yuan walked forward and sat beside Chihiro Snow, looking at Chihiro Snow with a grin. Seeing Lu Yuan's smiling expression, Chihiro Snow's face turned serious, snorted, and turned her head to the side. Lu Yuan didn't care. He changed his direction and sat on the other side of Chihiro Snow, still looking at Chihiro Snow with a grin. Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan fiercely, but Lu Yuan didn't care at all. He just looked at her with a smile, with a trace of gentleness in his eyes. Rogue. After staring at each other for a long time, Chihiro Snow finally lost the battle. Seeing Chihiro Snow speak, Lu Yuan was relieved. It was good that she spoke. It meant that Cher's anger had subsided. It would be troublesome if she didn't speak. "Cher," Lu Yuan said softly. "This is the last one, do you hear me?" Chihiro Snow stared at Lu Yuan's eyes. In the end, Chihiro Snow took another step back, but this was her bottom line. She wouldn't take another step back. "Well, I promise," Lu Yuan said righteously. "Lu Yuan, you've let me down." Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with eyes full of grievances. In her world, there was only Lu Yuan, but in Lu Yuan's world, she wasn't the only one. She was a dignified existence, but she actually had to share a man with another woman. This was a huge torture for Chihiro Snow. If she didn't really love the man in front of her, with her pride, she would never accept such a thing. "Cher, it's all my fault." Lu Yuan took Chihiro Snow into his arms with pity. He felt the most sorry for the person in front of him. Alas! Lu Yuan sighed softly. Being held in Lu Yuan's arms, Chihiro Snow didn't struggle. She just said softly, "Stinky guy, from now on, I want you to love me more and make it up to me. The one you love the most can only be me." Even if she shared the same man as Hu Liena and Zhu Zhuqing, she would still get the most love. Lu Yuan could only love her the most in his heart. This was Chihiro Snow's stubbornness. "Yes, the one I love the most will always be you," Lu Yuan said softly. Chihiro Snow's position in his heart was irreplaceable. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, a smile finally appeared on Chihiro Snow's face. "Stinky guy, remember what you said today," Chihiro Snow said. "Yes, I will remember it forever," Lu Yuan said as he gently stroked Chihiro Snow's soft golden hair. Chihiro Snow leaned into Lu Yuan's arms and felt the powerful heartbeat from Lu Yuan's chest with a smile on her face. Suddenly, Chihiro Snow seemed to have thought of something. "Stinky guy, you asked for the vast sea cosmic shroud last time. Is there something special about it?" "Oh, that's right, I almost forgot about it." Lu Yuan gently released Chihiro's snow and extended his right hand. Immediately, the vast sea cosmic shroud flew out from between his brows and landed in Lu Yuan's hand. Shware look. Lu Yuan gently injected his soul power into the vast sea cosmic shroud, and blue light immediately flashed. A huge shroud enveloped him and Chihiro's snow. This is one of the effects, invisibility. Not only can it hide our figures, but it can also hide our aura. People outside definitely won't be able to discover us. When I came here just now, I used it to swagger in, so I didn't have to worry about exposing my whereabouts. Furthermore, with this thing, I can see you whenever I want to. I won't have to worry about anyone discovering us. This is a good thing. Chihiro's snow nodded as he looked at the blue shroud around them. That's one of its effects. What about the others? A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face. Aside from invisibility, the vast sea cosmic shroud has 3 other abilities. The first skill is called the vast sea protective shroud, which is the skill from just now. The second skill is called the vast sea stasis shroud, which can bind a person's body and immobilize them. Lu Yuan activated the vast sea cosmic shroud in his hand as he spoke. The vast sea cosmic shroud abruptly expanded and enveloped Chihiro Snow's body. Immediately, Chihiro Snow was immobilized. Lu Yuan withdrew the vast sea cosmic shroud and looked at Chihiro Snow's astonished expression. The third skill is called the vast sea storm, and the fourth skill is called the cosmic devil breaker. One is an area of effect attack, while the other is a single target attack. No matter which skill I use, it will exhaust all of my soul power. However, at the same time, these skills are also very powerful. The vast sea cosmic shroud really is something, Chihiro Snow said softly. Hee, that's not even the most valuable part of the vast sea cosmic shroud. Lu Yuan chuckled. Chihiro Snow was a little curious. One had to know that the vast sea cosmic shroud's 4 skills were all extraordinarily powerful, but that still wasn't its most valuable part. Cher, do you know what the vast sea cosmic shroud's other name is? Lu Yuan asked. No. Chihiro Snow shook his head. The vast sea cosmic shroud's other name is the sea god's heart. The sea god's heart. Chihiro Snow was astonished. Could it be related to the sea god? That's right. The sea god's heart is an extremely important item in the sea god's inheritance. It can be said that you've obtained half of the sea god's inheritance with it. What? Chihiro Snow's face was filled with astonishment, and he looked at Lu Yuan with relief in his eyes. No wonder you wanted this thing. Could it be that you want to inherit the sea god's divine seat? Inherit the sea god's divine seat. Lu Yuan shook his head and said, I'm not interested in the sea god's divine seat. I already have a divine seed, so I'm going to create my own divine seat in the future. Even if I don't create my own divine seat, I have to find a higher level divine seat to inherit. The sea god's divine seat is still a little lacking. How arrogant! Chihiro Snow snapped. How dare this bastard look down on the sea god's divine seat? One had to realize that the sea god was a bona fide primary god, which was on the same level as the angel god that they worshipped, yet this bastard was still looking down on the sea god's divine seat. However, Chihiro Snow was starting to understand why Lu Yuan was saying this. He did indeed have the right to say something like this. Then what do you want this vast sea cosmic shroud for? Chihiro Snow asked. Lu Yuan chuckled and said, Come to think of it, it's quite a coincidence. I didn't want anything in the beginning, but when you mentioned compensation that day, I thought of this item. It would be a waste if I didn't take something as good as this. Even if I don't inherit the sea god's divine seat, it's still a good thing to have. Who knows, I might be able to use it someday. Furthermore, the power of the sea god within the sea god's heart is quite beneficial. I can feel that my spiritual power and constitution have become a lot stronger under the nourishment of the power of the sea god. Perhaps this third soul ring will allow me to challenge a 10,000-year existence. Chapter 202. Absorb a 10,000-year soul ring? Upon hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow's expression changed. Stinking brat, don't act recklessly. A 10,000-year soul beast is completely different from a 1,000-year soul beast. I know. Seeing the anxiousness on Chihiro Snow's face, it was clear that he was worried about him. Lu Yuan smiled slightly and said, a 10,000-year soul beast's intelligence has already been developed, and it's not much inferior to a human's. Therefore, when it absorbs a soul ring after death, it will experience a special condition unique to 10,000-year soul beasts, called spirit shock. You know about it? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan curiously. One had to know that there weren't many people on the continent who knew about spirit shock. In the original novel, even Grandmaster didn't know about it. It was Xiao Wu who brought it up because she was a 100,000-year soul beast. It was understandable that Grandmaster didn't know about it because his strength wasn't enough to support his research on 10,000-year soul beasts. In other words, his strength wasn't at the level where he could come into contact with these things. As for the other teachers of Shrek Academy, they were all unorthodox and hadn't received any systematic education. It was normal that they didn't know about these things. The reason why Soul Masters could only absorb 10,000-year soul rings after becoming Soul Kings was because of their physique. A Soul King's physique was enough to withstand the pressure of a 10,000-year soul ring. The other reason was because once a Soul King reached the Soul King rank, a Soul Master's spiritual power would be strong enough, and his soul would be stable. Only at this stage would a Soul Master be able to withstand the spirit shock of a 10,000-year soul beast. In the Martial Soul Palace, there weren't many people who knew about this. Basically, only titled Soul Masters and above knew about it. Chihiro Snow didn't expect Lu Yuan to know about it. Since you know, why do you still want to try? Aren't you afraid of exploding? Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan chuckled and said, since I've said it, I definitely have my own reasons. There are actually two factors that determine the number of years a soul ring can absorb. The first is the physical body. I believe that my current physical body is already capable of withstanding the power of a 10,000-year soul ring. Cher, what do you think? Chihiro Snow nodded. Even though Lu Yuan was only at rank 29, he possessed the Golden Dragon Martial Soul and the Golden Dragon Bloodline. He even had a soul bone. Later on, he was nourished by the divine power of clear air and the power of the vast ocean. It was more than enough for him to withstand the pressure of a 10,000-year soul ring. But what about his spiritual power? One had to know that the most difficult thing to deal with when absorbing a 10,000-year soul ring was the spiritual shock. As for the second factor, spiritual power, Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow and said with a smile, actually, my strongest point isn't my physical body, but my spiritual power. Cher, my spiritual power is above yours. I don't believe it. Chihiro Snow shook his head. If Lu Yuan said that his physical body was stronger than his, then Chihiro Snow would accept it. After all, the Golden Dragon's physical body was the strongest among all martial souls. His six-winged angel was far inferior in this aspect. However, Chihiro Snow didn't believe that Lu Yuan could surpass him in terms of spiritual power. Then let's compete? Lu Yuan said. Okay. Chihiro Snow said, how do we compete? Let's release our spiritual power at the same time and compete. Won't we know? Okay. Chihiro Snow agreed, but he was a little shocked. Releasing spiritual power wasn't something that an ordinary soul master could do. Apart from spiritual-type soul masters, other soul masters had to be at least a soul king to be able to release their spiritual power. Furthermore, the distance they could release their spiritual power was very limited. Her soul power was at rank 49, and with the advantage of her martial soul, her spiritual power was close to that of a soul emperor. She could release her spiritual power outside her body. However, Lu Yuan was only at rank 29, and yet he could release his spiritual power. Didn't this mean that his spiritual power wasn't weaker than a Soul King's? How was this possible? That's too perverted. Chihiro Snow was skeptical. He closed his eyes and began to circulate his spiritual power. Generally speaking, Soul Masters who didn't specialize in spiritual type Soul Masters or had skull bones wouldn't be able to use their spiritual power to attack their enemies. Purely releasing spiritual power consumed a lot of spiritual power. Furthermore, it didn't have much power. Therefore, Soul Masters generally wouldn't release their spiritual power during a battle, even if they were high-ranking Soul Masters. The gains didn't make up for the losses. However, if it was just a contest of spiritual power, it would be possible. Chihiro Snow's spiritual power spread out from her body and pressed down on Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan couldn't help but nod his head when he sensed the strength of Chihiro Snow's spiritual power. Chihiro Snow's spiritual power was comparable to that of an ordinary low-level Soul Emperor. For someone her age, she was considered very outstanding. This strength was comparable to before he obtained his polychoria. It was much stronger than Hulina's current spiritual power. One had to know that Hulina was a spiritual type Soul Master. Lu Yuan estimated that Hulina's spiritual power was around that of a Soul King's. This was only achieved after her martial soul evolved. Of course, he couldn't say that Hulina was weak. Hulina had just become a Soul Ancestor. It was rare for a Soul Ancestor to have spiritual power like Hulina's. After all, there was only one Chihiro Snow. She was the future angel god. How could she be ordinary? This was just pure spiritual power. Once she used her skills, Hulina's charm could pose a huge threat to a Soul King. Chihiro Snow herself didn't use her spiritual power to fight. Of course, this was only limited to now. Once Chihiro Snow absorbed the angel skull, the situation would be different. Lu Yuan smiled when he felt Chihiro Snow's spiritual power surge towards him. His spiritual power spread out and collided with Chihiro Snow's spiritual power. Chihiro Snow's delicate body trembled. A clash of spiritual power was much more dangerous than a clash of physical strength. If one wasn't careful, it could easily cause a huge injury. However, Lu Yuan grasped the situation very well. When he felt Chihiro Snow's spiritual power weaken, Lu Yuan immediately withdrew his own. He gently embraced Chihiro Snow's delicate body. "Cher, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Chihiro Snow lay in Lu Yuan's arms with a hint of astonishment on her face. She didn't think that Lu Yuan's spiritual power would be so strong. If Lu Yuan hadn't withdrawn his spiritual power in time, her spiritual power would have most likely been damaged. "Stinky brat, what level is your spiritual power at?" Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a curious look on her face. "It should be around the same level as an ordinary soul sage." Lu Yuan smiled. When he first obtained his dual pupils in the ancient ruins, his spiritual power was still comparable to that of a high-grade Soul Emperor. However, after he obtained the vast Sea Cosmic Shroud, which was also the Sea God's heart, the Sea God took the initiative to transform his mind and body. During this process, Lu Yuan's spiritual power finally increased again, and he became a Soul Sage. Chapter 203. What? Chihiro Snow couldn't help but exclaim. This guy's spiritual power isn't much weaker than a Soul Sage's? Chihiro Snow looked at him with a strange look in her eyes. "What's wrong, Cher? Why are you looking at me like that?" Lu Yuan smiled and asked. "Pervert." Chihiro Snow spat out 2 words from her red lip. Lu Yuan chuckled. To be able to hear the word pervert from a proud girl like Chihiro Snow was the greatest compliment to him. That's why, as long as my body can withstand it, a 10,000-year soul ring isn't a problem for me. This is because my spiritual power is stronger than my physical body. Lu Yuan smiled as he spoke. His physical body was comparable to a high-level Soul King, but his spiritual power was at the level of a soul sage. In theory, he could absorb a 20,000-year soul ring. Of course, if the soul beast was stronger, the age limit might be reduced. After all, the higher the rank of the soul beast, the more tyrannical its soul power would be. But no matter what, absorbing a 10,000-year soul ring wasn't a fantasy for Lu Yuan right now. On the contrary, it wasn't very difficult for him to do it. Chihiro Snow felt complicated as she watched Lu Yuan speak with assurance. Right now, her physical body and spiritual power were inferior to Lu Yuan's. Perhaps she could only rely on the difference of 20 ranks between them to suppress him. However, with this stinky fellow's cultivation speed, this difference in soul power would only become smaller and smaller. It seems like this fellow will surpass me soon. Chihiro Snow felt proud of Lu Yuan, but she also felt a little anxious. I can't let this rascal drag me down. Otherwise, I won't be able to bully him. It seems like I have to work hard in the future. Chihiro Snow thought to herself. Cher, what are you thinking about? Lu Yuan tapped the tip of Chihiro Snow's nose gently. Nothing, Chihiro Snow said. Really? Lu Yuan gently pinched Chihiro Snow's nose and said with a smile, It's not a good habit to lie to people. Chihiro Snow snorted and turned his head away arrogantly. Lu Yuan smiled and stroked Chihiro Snow's hair. How could he not know what Chihiro Snow was thinking? He lowered his head and kissed Chihiro Snow's face gently. He said softly, Cher, in front of you, I'll always be the Lu Yuan who doesn't fight back when you hit or scold me. Always. Yes. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Qian Rinxue's heart was filled with gratitude. She could not help but smile as she said proudly, You said it yourself. Of course. Lu Yuan said with a smile. The two hugged for a while. Chihiro Snow looked at the dark sky outside and said, It's already late. Why don't you go back first? Go back? Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow and said, It's already late. It'll be dawn when we go back. Cher, why don't I stay tonight? What did you say? Chihiro Snow stared at Lu Yuan with a blush on his face. Nothing. I mean, I want to sleep with you tonight. What do you think? Lu Yuan smiled and hugged Chihiro Snow's waist. No. Chihiro Snow said. Why? Cher, do you dislike me? Lu Yuan pretended to be wronged and said. Of course not. Chihiro Snow turned his face away embarrassedly and said, I'm not ready. Lu Yuan laughed and said, I don't want to do anything else. I just want to hug you and sleep. What do you need to prepare? Really? Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with eyes full of suspicion. Hey Cher, what's with your eyes? Do I look like the kind of person who can't wait? Lu Yuan said. You do. Chihiro Snow said straightforwardly. Lu Yuan. I don't care if you believe it or not. I'm not leaving tonight. Lu Yuan simply acted shamelessly and lay on the bed, looking like he didn't care about anything. Rascal. Looking at Lu Yuan's actions, Chihiro Snow shook his head in amusement and anger. The next morning, Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow, who was sleeping soundly in his arms with a smile on his face. This girl's words were arrogant, but in the end, she still hugged him tightly and refused to let go. Heh, women! Lu Yuan carefully looked at Chihiro Snow's sleeping face. Her golden hair was stuck to her beautiful cheeks. It was less sacred but more lazy and cute. Chihiro Snow was extremely beautiful. At least until now, no one Lu Yuan had seen could compare to Chihiro Snow in terms of appearance. The number one beauty of the Douluo continent lived up to her name. As if sensing Lu Yuan's gaze, Chihiro Snow opened her beautiful eyes. You're awake? Lu Yuan revealed a smile and said, How was it, Cher? I didn't lie, did I? I didn't do anything bad to you. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan and was a little surprised. This guy actually didn't do anything bad. She was very clear about how charming she was. It seemed that this stinky guy's self-control was quite strong. However, Chihiro Snow naturally wouldn't admit defeat verbally. You're worse than a beast. Chihiro Snow snorted arrogantly. What did you say? Lu Yuan immediately became angry. Good fellow, she actually dared to say that about him. If he didn't do some beastly things to prove himself, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Lu Yuan turned around and pressed Chihiro Snow's delicate body under him. He lowered his head and covered Chihiro Snow's red lip. His right hand began to run amok. Chihiro Snow was shocked. She quickly grabbed Lu Yuan's hand and looked at Lu Yuan pitifully. Lu Yuan let go of Chihiro Snow's red lips and said, "Are you still worse than a beast?" "No." Chihiro Snow quickly shook her head and said. Lu Yuan stared at Chihiro Snow's eyes and said, "I love you and cherish you. In the end, you actually look at me like this. Do you know how hard it was for me to endure?" "I was wrong, I'm sorry," Chihiro Snow said softly. "Just apologizing isn't enough. Your words made me very sad. You have to compensate me," Lu Yuan said. "Then what compensation do you want? As long as I have it, I can give it to you," Chihiro Snow asked. For her, no matter what Lu Yuan wanted, she was willing to give it to him. "I don't need you to give it to me. I'll take it myself." With that, Lu Yuan lowered his head again and covered Chihiro Snow's red lips. "Woo!" After putting on his clothes and tidying himself up, Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow, who was also dressed. He gently stroked Chihiro Snow's cheek and said, "I'll be leaving first then." "Okay." Chihiro Snow nodded lightly. "Let's have a goodbye kiss before we part." Lu Yuan giggled. Chihiro Snow glanced at Lu Yuan in amusement, but she didn't reject him in the end. She took a step forward and pressed her red lips against Lu Yuan's lip. "Yes, I feel much more relaxed and happy," Lu Yuan chuckled. He turned around and opened the door. The vast sea cosmic shroud flew out and landed in his hand. Just as Lu Yuan stepped out of the door, the system's cold voice suddenly sounded, "Sign in mission, sign in location. Great Star Do Forest." Chapter 204. Sign in mission, Great Star Do Forest. Sign in time, 3 months. Rewards unknown. The system's cold voice sounded. "Oh!" Lu Yuan stopped in his tracks. Did the system give him another sign in mission? 3 months is enough. I'm rank 29 now, but I'm not far from rank 30. I'll definitely break through in a few days. When that happens, I can even get a soul ring. Lu Yuan thought to himself. "Master! Young Master Yuan!" The 4 titled Douluo rushed over the moment Lu Yuan stepped out of his room. Lu Yuan was sleeping soundly in his room with Chihiro Snow in his arms. The 4 of them had been waiting outside for an entire night. Sigh, I'm going to cry if I talk too much. We're already so old, yet we still have to go through such torture. The heavens are really unfair. Alright, let's go. Lu Yuan nodded slightly. After that, he activated the vast sea cosmic shroud in his hand. Lu Yuan, Long Xiaoyao, and the frenzied Rhino Douluo disappeared. Is this the vast sea cosmic shroud? It's indeed magical, the snake spear Douluo said as he watched the 3 of them disappear. It is indeed magical. However, I'm more concerned about whether young Master Yuan and young Mistress, the thorny pufferfish Douluo said. They should have, the snake spear Douluo said as he tapped his chin. I don't think so. There wasn't much movement last night, the thorny pufferfish Douluo said. Much movement, the snake spear Douluo said. Do you think they used the vast sea cosmic shroud to isolate themselves last night? Is that why we didn't hear anything? In fact, they already. That's very possible. The thorny pufferfish Douluo nodded. He felt that it made sense. What are the 2 of you talking about? Chihiro Snow's voice sounded. Nothing, young mistress. The 2 of them were shocked when they heard Chihiro Snow's voice. Lu Yuan made his way back to the Starblue Hotel. Now that the sign-in quest had been issued, it meant that he wouldn't be able to stay in Heaven Do Imperial City for much longer. Moreover, he was only a step away from level 30. He needed to break through as soon as possible. Furthermore, He didn't just tell Xiao Shui about Long Xiaoyao's background, he also told Xiao Shui about his senior sister and Zhu Zhuqing. He finally obtained Xiao Shui's approval. He didn't have to worry about the harem being set on fire in the future. Lu Yuan felt unusually relaxed now. To him, Qian Renxue was the most difficult one to deal with because she was the most arrogant and the most overbearing. She was not as docile as Hu Laiina and Zhu Zhuqing, but fortunately, he still managed to pacify her. Now, he was really free of worries. As for Ning Fengji, Lu Yuan decided to meet him again before he left. He wanted to build a good relationship with him. As for Shui Er's side, Avalanche had been grounded in the prince's residence after being beaten 20 times, and Prince Shui Xing had also been neglected by the Snow Knight Emperor. Shui Er was currently in the limelight, and the situation was good. Even if he left now, Qian Renxue should be able to completely control the situation. Lu Yuan believed that she had the ability to do so. It wasn't for anything else, but because she was Chihiro Snow. Therefore, Lu Yuan only had two things in front of him. The first was to break through his cultivation. The second was to build a good relationship with Ning Fengji, so that he could make preparations to take over the Seven Treasures Glazed sect in the future. Lu Yuan thought as he sat cross-legged. He started to circulate the clear air scripture and worked towards level 30. 1 month later. In this 1 month, not only did Lu Yuan break through his cultivation, he also pulled his relationship with Ning Fengji closer. Lu Yuan had planned for a long time, and Ning Fengji had the intention to become friends. They could be said to have hit it off immediately. Of course, during this period, Lu Yuan also acted cold and aloof. After all, he was like this in front of outsiders. Ning Fengji was smooth and slick, and had strong interpersonal skills. Basically, it was Ning Fengji who spoke. After meeting a few times, their relationship naturally became better. Now, Ning Fengji no longer called him young Master Lu. He had changed to Obuchi. In terms of familiarity and thick skin, one had to admit that Ning Fengji had some skills. But for his own future plans, Lu Yuan did not refute. It was just a title and did not mean anything. He could also call him Uncle Ning. In terms of the thickness of his skin, he was not inferior to anyone. In the study of the Crown Prince's residence, Chihiro Snow and Lu Yuan were alone. "Are you leaving?" Chihiro Snow picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for Lu Yuan. "Yes, I'm already level 30. I need to go to the Great Star Do Forest to get a soul ring," Lu Yuan said as he received the tea from Chihiro Snow. "Then what do you plan to do after you absorb the soul ring? Will you come back?" Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan with a trace of hope in his eyes. "After I absorb the soul ring, I plan to train on the continent. I probably won't come back to Heaven Do Imperial City for a while," Lu Yuan said. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow's expression did not change, but there was a trace of reluctance in his eyes. Looking at Chihiro Snow's appearance, Lu Yuan suddenly stood up and came to Chihiro Snow's side. He pulled Chihiro Snow into his embrace. "Cher, are you reluctant to part with me?" Chihiro Snow glanced at Lu Yuan and said, "Stinky fellow, stop being so narcissistic. Who's reluctant to part with you? You're not speaking from your heart again." Lu Yuan smiled faintly and said, "Shui, if you don't look up out of habit when you say this, then I will really believe you." As he spoke, Lu Yuan did not wait for Chihiro Snow to speak. "Cher, I'm reluctant to part with you too. If possible, I really want to see you every day." As Lu Yuan spoke, he gently kissed Chihiro Snow's forehead. "Stinky fellow," Chihiro Snow called out softly. "Although I'm reluctant to part with you, I still have to leave. I'm still very weak right now, and I have to become stronger. If I'm not strong enough, how can I protect you in the future? This is a world where strength is respected. If you don't want to be bullied by others, you have to become stronger than everyone else," Lu Yuan said seriously. "Yes." Chihiro Snow nodded gently. She was not an ordinary girl. Compared to Lu Yuan staying by her side all day, she was more willing to let Lu Yuan have a bright future. This man was destined to roam the 9 heavens, and not be trapped in a mere 3 feet space by her side. Chihiro Snow had known this for a long time. "Cher, I'll come back to see you," Lu Yuan said. Chihiro Snow nodded and looked at Lu Yuan. Her eyes were filled with affection. "Cher, what's wrong?" Lu Yuan asked gently. "Stinky fellow, kiss me." Chihiro Snow pressed her lips against his. "All right," Lu Yuan said softly. After that, he lowered his head slightly. The study room was filled with the smell of food. "Master, where are we going?" Outside the Star Blue Hotel, Long Xiaoyao looked at Lu Yuan. "The Great Star Doe Forest," Lu Yuan said. "Yes, master. As for Elder Wild Rhinoceros, you can stay behind to protect Cher. Elder Long can protect me." "Yes, young Master Yuan." The Wild Rhinoceros Douluo's voice rang out. Chapter 205. Lu Yuan left with Long Xiaoyao for the Great Star Doe Forest. There were 2 reasons why he left the Frenzy Rhino Douluo behind. The first reason was that Long Xiaoyao's protection was enough. Chihiro Snow was in Heaven Do Imperial City, and it was too dangerous for him. The stronger the protection, the better. The second reason was that Lu Yuan had a premonition that something closely related to him was going to happen in the Great Star Doe Forest. Long Xiaoyao was on his side, and he was 100% loyal to him. However, the Frenzy Rhino Douluo was Sendoryu's subordinate. To be honest, Lu Yuan didn't trust him 100%. Therefore, it wasn't a bad thing to leave the Frenzy Rhino Douluo behind. From another perspective, the Frenzy Rhino Douluo would be able to see everything that he did with Sendoryu by his side. Lu Yuan couldn't accept that. In the past, he didn't have anyone protecting him, and couldn't leave him. However, with Long Xiaoyao around, there was no need for him to keep an eye on him. Wouldn't it be more comfortable to be alone and free? The Great Star Doe Forest was between the 2 empires. It was the largest forest of soul beasts on the continent. There were many 100,000-year soul beasts, but most of them were hidden away. Most of the soul cultivators on the continent only knew about the Titan Giant Ape and the Sky Azure Bull Python, but Lu Yuan knew even more about them. For example, the 10 great savage beasts, and the Silver Dragon King, who was recuperating at the bottom of the Lake of Life. They were the true secrets of the Great Star Doe Forest. Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao set off from Heaven Do Imperial City. With Long Xiaoyao around, the 2 of them flew over. They arrived at the Great Star Doe Forest in just 2 days. This was because Lu Yuan wasn't used to flying for long periods of time. Otherwise, they would have been even faster. Lu Yuan shook his dizzy head as he looked at the forest in front of him. Long Xiaoyao's speed was too quick, and he couldn't get used to it. He was still a little dizzy even after he landed on the ground. However, Lu Yuan's spiritual power was very strong, and he quickly recovered. "Is this the Great Star Doe Forest?" Lu Yuan was a little shocked as he looked at the ancient trees that reached into the sky and the forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was his first time in the Great Star Doe Forest, and it wasn't something that the Martial Soul Palace's Soul Beast Forest could compare to. Indeed, only a forest like this could nurture an existence that was 100,000 years old or even higher. "Elder Long, let's go in," Lu Yuan said. "Yes, master," Long Xiaoyao replied. The 2 of them walked into the forest. Outside the forest, there were 10-year, 100-year, and 1,000-year soul beasts. However, these weren't Lu Yuan's target. His target was the hybrid region. The hybrid region was where most 10,000-year soul beasts lived. The Great Star Doe Forest was generally split into the peripheral region, the hybrid region, and the core region. The soul beasts in the peripheral region were generally below 10,000 years, while the hybrid region was the home of 10,000-year soul beasts. As for the core region, it was where the 100,000-year soul beasts lived. The Titan giant ape and the sky azure bull python lived in the core region. In fact, they were more like gatekeepers at the border between the hybrid region and the core region. They didn't have the right to step into the core region, and only higher-ranked soul beasts could survive there. For example, Tion, the Bear Lord, the Myriad Demon King, and other savage beasts were the true rulers of the core region. Master, what kind of soul beast are you planning to hunt? Long Xiaoyao asked as they walked. Lu Yuan muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "My first soul ring adds strength, and my second soul ring adds defense. According to my original idea, my third soul ring is to increase my offensive strength." Increase your offensive strength? Long Xiaoyao nodded and said, "There's a type of soul beast in the Great Star Dough Forest that's extremely suitable for you. Their offensive strength is definitely top-notch among soul beasts." Elder Long, you're talking about the dark golden terraclaw bear, right? Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Yes, Master's guess is right. An adult dark golden terraclaw bear can even tear a giant dragon apart with its bare hands. The offensive strength of its claws can't be underestimated. Furthermore, the dark golden terraclaw bear's defensive strength is also very strong. It can give Master the perfect boost." Long Xiaoyao said, "Yes, Elder Long, you're right. The dark golden terraclaw bear is also my first target." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Do you have other options, Master?" "I do have other options. For example, the gold mysterious white tiger and the earthen sword dragon are all within my expectations. However, the dark golden terraclaw bear is still the best choice." Lu Yuan said, "A 10,000-year dark golden terraclaw bear can fight against an ordinary 100,000-year soul beast. Such soul beasts definitely live in the hybrid region. They might even go deeper. It's very dangerous there. Master, don't stray too far from me later in case anything happens." Long Xiaoyao said. "Yes." Lu Yuan nodded. He was very clear about his own abilities. He could fight a 10,000-year soul beast, but that was only limited to ordinary ones. Furthermore, he might not be able to win. It depended on the type of soul beast. If it was a 10,000-year dark golden terraclaw bear, it wouldn't take much effort to kill it. Therefore, Lu Yuan agreed with Long Xiaoyao's words. The two of them continued forward. The outer region was very big. It wasn't realistic to want to cross it in one go. Even with Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao's speed, it would still take them a few days. 5 days later. "Master, we should be entering the hybrid region from here. The Great Star Dough Forest is indeed huge." Long Xiaoyao said. Lu Yuan nodded. The Great Star Dough Forest was about the same size as the Bala Kingdom. The outer region was the largest. The two of them were able to reach the hybrid region in 5 days because they were fast. Ordinary people would need more than 10 days just to cross the outer region. Of course, they encountered many soul beasts along the way. However, with Long Xiaoyao around, these soul beasts were seeking their own death. Lu Yuan was able to eat the meat of many rare soul beasts along the way. It tasted really good. After entering the hybrid region, Lu Yuan's expression became a lot more serious. This was where 10,000-year soul beasts lived. 10,000-year soul beasts were very frightening. Even the weakest of them was comparable to a soul king. They weren't something that 1,000-year soul beasts could compare to. 10,000-year soul beasts possessed intelligence that wasn't much inferior to that of humans. This meant that not only did they possess tyrannical fighting strength, but they were also capable of strategizing. For example, soul beasts from the wolf clan were relatively good at using their brains. It was only at the 10,000-year level that all soul beasts underwent their first major metamorphosis. This metamorphosis manifested itself in all aspects. Of the same species, a 10,000-year soul beast and a 9,000-year soul beast were worlds apart. They were no longer on the same level. Chapter 206. Of course, this only applied to the same species. Different species were different. For example, a 1,000-year dark golden terraclaw bear had no problem killing a 10,000-year mandala snake. This involved another aspect: the difference in the ranks of soul beasts. Generally speaking, 10,000-year soul beasts had to undergo their first metamorphosis. As for their second metamorphosis, they had to be at least 100,000-year soul beast. However, 100,000-year soul beast was still far away from Lu Yuan, so he didn't mention it. After entering the hybrid region, they saw fewer soul beasts. It wasn't like before, where they could see a soul beast every few steps. 10,000-year soul beasts had their own territories. Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao met two 10,000-year soul beasts as they walked. However, they didn't disturb them, because they didn't meet Lu Yuan's requirements. Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao didn't disturb them, and they didn't attack them either. Soul beasts were very territorial, but they were also very sensitive. This was especially so for 10,000-year soul beasts. Their ability to sense danger was much stronger than soul masters of the same rank. They could clearly sense the immense threat coming from Long Xiaoyao, and knew that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Otherwise, there was only one outcome: death. Under such circumstances, Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao didn't show any malicious intent. Naturally, they wouldn't attack them. They weren't stupid. Their intelligence wasn't much lower than that of a normal human's. Another half a day passed, but they still didn't find a suitable soul beast. Lu Yuan sat on a rock and rested for a while. After walking for an entire morning, he was a little tired. "Master, let's rest and eat something before we continue our search," Long Xiaoyao said. "Okay." Lu Yuan nodded and asked, "Elder Long, which soul beast's territory do we belong to?" "I'm not sure. We just passed by a 30,000-year man-faced demon spider's territory. However, I killed it with a single palm strike. We should be out of its territory now, but I'm not sure whose territory it belongs to," Long Xiaoyao said. After hearing this, Lu Yuan nodded slightly. Just now, when he and Long Xiaoyao passed by the territory of a 30,000-year-old man-faced demonic spider, that man-faced demonic spider actually dared to attack them. Should I say that it's no wonder it's an evil killer recorded in the original novel? Starting a fight at the slightest disagreement. How blind. The 30,000-year man-faced demon spider was actually very strong. Its venom was comparable to that of a soul sage. However, Long Xiaoyao could crush it with a single slap. However, whether or not this man-faced demon spider was the same man-faced demon spider that had caused Xiao Wu's death in the original story, Lu Yuan wasn't sure. However, the possibility was very high, as it was very rare for a soul beast like the man-faced demon spider to live for more than 30,000 years. However, if it really was that one, then Lu Yuan had unintentionally ruined one of Tang San's opportunities. After all, in the original work, Tang San had absorbed another external soul bone dropped by this man-faced demon spider. Therefore, his external soul bone, the 8-spider spear, had mutated and connected with several other soul bones, producing the prototype of a soul bone armor. However, this man-faced demon spider had turned into a pile of mud now, and Tang San wasn't fated to obtain it. As the chances of the man-faced demon spider dropping an external soul bone were very high, Lu Yuan went to look for it. However, perhaps because Long Xiaoyao had killed it with a single slap, Lu Yuan didn't find any external soul bones. However, he didn't mind. If he had it, he would be lucky. If he didn't, he would be doomed. Furthermore, the 8-spider spear was a little ugly, and it didn't match his aura. He preferred handsome things. For example, his golden dragon armor was very handsome. Therefore, it was fine if he didn't find it. It was just a spur of the moment. Lu Yuan sat down and rested for a while. He took out a piece of dry rations and prepared to fill his stomach. After running around in the forest for such a long time, he was a little hungry. "Master!" Long Xiaoyao shook his hand, and a green beehive appeared in his hand. A strange aroma immediately spread. Is this the honey of the 1,000-year green jade bees? Lu Yuan recognized it immediately. Wasn't this the beehive of the 1,000-year green jade bees that Long Xiaoyao had discovered on the way here? He remembered that he had killed many green jade bees back then. This 1,000-year green jade honey was a decent natural treasure. It was very beneficial for cultivation. Furthermore, it tasted very good and its fragrance could spread very far. When Long Xiaoyao collected it, he saw it with his own eyes. However, he had been too focused on finding soul beasts these days. Furthermore, he had been eating different types of roasted soul beast meat for every meal. He had forgotten about it. Now that Long Xiaoyao had taken it out, he finally remembered. Wasn't it better to drink it than to eat dry rations alone? As for why he didn't eat roasted soul beast meat for this meal, Lu Yuan only wanted to answer this question if the man-faced demon spider could be eaten. However, the man-faced demon spider couldn't be eaten. Therefore, he could only eat dry rations. Yes. Long Xiaoyao nodded and said, Master, you can try this. This green jade honey tastes pretty good. Okay. Lu Yuan nodded and dug a small hole in the beehive. He took out 2 jade bowls from his star ring and poured the clear, jade-green honey into the jade bowls. A refreshing fragrance wafted into his nose. Don't ask me why the honey is jade-green. It's because this is the Douluo continent. It's that simple. Lu Yuan passed one of the jade bowls to Long Xiaoyao and said, Elder Long, you should drink some too. Yes, master. Long Xiaoyao didn't stand on ceremony as he received the jade bowl. Although he was an ultimate Douluo, he was still human. He still had to eat. Lu Yuan lifted the jade bowl and took a sip. It was very sweet. There was a rich but not pungent fragrance. Once it entered his mouth, it spread throughout his entire mouth. It had a pure, natural flavor. The honey from the green jade bees was very different from the honey he had eaten before. They were all sweet. However, the sweetness of the green jade honey was just right. It was sweet but not greasy. Even though he didn't like to eat sweets, he had to admit that this green jade honey was indeed exquisite. As he looked at the remaining honey, Lu Yuan felt that he could keep it and store it in his star ring. He believed that Cher and his senior sister would like to eat sweets like this. As for Zhu Zhuqing, she loved to eat fish. Lu Yuan had a deep impression of this. After all, she had a cat martial soul. Whether it was the Netherworld civet before it evolved or the 9 lives lynx after it evolved, a cat's love for fish would never change. Lu Yuan was just about to keep the green jade beehive when there was a commotion in the distance. Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao looked in the direction of the commotion at the same time. A 5-meter-tall bear with dark golden fur appeared in front of them. It was very muscular, and its sharp claws flickered with a dazzling cold light. It nodded its huge head slightly, as if it was sniffing something. Chapter 207. Dark Golden Terraclaw Bear? Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao recognized this soul beast at the same time. Wasn't this the dark golden terraclaw bear that stood at the top of the pyramid of soul beasts, and was comparable to the Titan giant ape? Its long and sharp claws were the dark golden terraclaw bear's strongest attack. They were also known as the dark golden terraclaw bear, and were so strong that they could tear a dragon apart. It's 5 meters tall, and its claws are 1.5 feet long. This dark golden terraclaw bear should be around 15,000 years old. Elder Long, it suits me. As Lu Yuan spoke, he looked at the dark golden terraclaw bear not far away. He didn't expect his luck to be so good that a 15,000-year dark golden terraclaw bear would come to him on its own accord. Yes, master, please wait for a moment. Let me capture it. Long Xiaoyao said as he looked at the dark golden terraclaw bear. Just as Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao discovered the dark golden terraclaw bear, the dark golden terraclaw bear also discovered the two of them. However, this dark golden terraclaw bear didn't leave after discovering Long Xiaoyao. Instead, it roared into the sky and stared at the green jade beehive in Lu Yuan's hands with its yellow eyes. Lu Yuan's attention was attracted by the dark golden terraclaw bear's gaze. He followed its gaze and was enlightened. So that's how it is. I was careless, Lu Yuan said softly. He recalled some records about the dark golden terraclaw bear. The dark golden terraclaw bear loved honey the most, especially honey produced by high-tier soul beasts. That was the favorite of the dark golden terraclaw bear. Dark golden terraclaw bears loved to rummage through the beehives of bee-type soul beasts and steal their honey. Sometimes they would be stung by bee-type soul beasts, but they wouldn't change their minds. They would return to their old habit. It wasn't hard to imagine how much they loved honey. The honey produced by the green jade bees was a special type of honey produced by bee-type soul beasts. Its fragrance didn't dissipate for a long time. It wasn't hard to imagine how attractive this honey was to the dark golden terraclaw bear. If Lu Yuan had recalled this record earlier and used the green jade honey to attract the dark golden terraclaw bear, he would probably have found a suitable soul ring for himself. Of course, it was not too late. The dark golden terraclaw bear's eyes were still fixed on the green jade beehive in Lu Yuan's hands. Its large yellow eyes were filled with desire, and it would occasionally roar at Lu Yuan and Huiyuhao. Black lines appeared on Lu Yuan's forehead as he looked at the dark golden terraclaw bear. This dark golden terraclaw bear was famous for being simple-minded in the world of soul beasts. It was even more simple-minded than the Titan giant ape. Ordinary 10,000-year soul beasts all retreated when they felt Long Xiaoyao's terrifying aura. However, this iron fool actually took the initiative to provoke him. 10,000-year soul beasts weren't weak, and 10,000-year dark golden terraclaw bears were the same. However, while they weren't weak, their personalities were rather rigid, and they were a little similar to Brother Flattop. Bro Flattop didn't care about life and death. He would fight if he wasn't convinced. The dark golden terraclaw bear was the same. No matter how strong you are, I'll fight you first. If I can't beat you, I'll think about other things. In any case, I won't be convinced no matter how strong you are before I make a move. Back then, the Bear Lord was extremely daring. He actually challenged Ditian, and even used his dark golden terraclaw to injure Ditian. In the end, Ditian used his dragon god's claw to beat him up, and he only felt pain after being beaten up. This dark golden terraclaw bear was the same. It could clearly sense that Long Xiaoyao's aura was far superior to his, but it still dared to roar at him. In some ways, it was even more daring than the Bear Lord in the past. The Bear Lord had more than 400,000 years of cultivation, and he was challenging Ditian, who had more than 800,000 years of cultivation. Even though there was a difference of more than 400,000 years of cultivation between them, they were still at least 100,000 years of cultivation. This dark golden terraclaw bear only had 15,000 years of cultivation, but it dared to make a scene at Long Xiaoyao, who was a true ultimate Douluo. It had to be said that it was tired of living. Seeing that the dark golden terraclaw bear was provoking him, Long Xiaoyao said softly, "Master, let me teach this beast a lesson." "Okay." Lu Yuan nodded. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Long Xiaoyao's figure flashed, and he slapped the dark golden terraclaw bear. The dark golden terraclaw bear roared into the sky, and its huge claws met Long Xiaoyao's attack. Roar! The dark golden terraclaw bear cried out in pain, and Long Xiaoyao slapped it into the ground. After that, he grabbed the dark golden terraclaw bear's short tail and slammed it into the ground. Even though they were very far away, Lu Yuan could feel the ground shaking. "Oh my God, that's too brutal!" Lu Yuan clicked his tongue in admiration as he watched Long Xiaoyao slam the dark golden terraclaw bear into the ground. However, he was thinking about whether he should do the same when he fought in the future. The way he slammed the dark golden terraclaw bear into the ground seemed very forceful, and it should be more compatible with his golden dragon bloodline. "Okay, let's do that." Lu Yuan nodded. He had to change his fighting style in the future. He had to be more violent. He had been too elegant in the past, and he couldn't be too elegant. He had to be violent in his elegance. That was the best description of the golden dragon. After slamming the dark golden terraclaw bear into the ground for about 15 minutes, Long Xiaoyao dragged the dark golden terraclaw bear towards Lu Yuan. It had to be said that the dark golden terraclaw bear was indeed a transcendent soul beast. Its strength, defense, and offense were all top-tier. Its vitality was also very strong. After being slammed by Long Xiaoyao for so long, it was still alive. It was impressive. However, the dark golden terraclaw bear looked very pitiful. Its dark golden fur was covered in dust, and its flesh was badly mangled. Fresh blood had seeped through its entire body. It was indeed struggling for its life. A 15,000-year dark golden terraclaw bear wasn't weak. At the very least, the frenzied rhino Douluo might not have been able to defeat it. However, Long Xiaoyao was a rank 99 ultimate Douluo, and he didn't even have to release his martial soul to defeat it. The difference between an ultimate Douluo and an ordinary titled Douluo was like heaven and earth. Master! Long Xiaoyao threw the dark golden terraclaw bear beside Lu Yuan's feet and said, "You can give it the final blow." "Yes." Lu Yuan nodded. A golden spear appeared in his hand as a radiance flashed. Lu Yuan's world-shaking spear had been reforged. It was made of the highest quality metal, and was forged by the best blacksmiths in the Martial Soul Palace. It was much better than the original world-shaking spear. It was also very heavy. It weighed more than 400 kilograms. It was just right for Lu Yuan to use. As for its name, it was still called the world-shaking spear. Lu Yuan couldn't be bothered to give it a new name. As he looked at the dark golden terraclaw bear's resentful eyes, Lu Yuan sighed softly. He thrust his spear forward and ended its life. This was the law of this world. The strong preyed on the weak. As long as soul rings existed, soul masters and soul beasts would never be able to coexist peacefully. Such killings were inevitable. Chapter 208. He withdrew his spear from the dark golden terraclaw bear's throat. After receiving Lu Yuan's final blow, the dark golden terraclaw bear's yellow eyes dimmed completely. A pitch-black soul ring appeared above the dark golden terraclaw bear's body. "Master, don't worry and absorb it. I'll protect you," Long Xiaoyao said. "Okay." Lu Yuan nodded. Even though they were in the hybrid region, he wouldn't be in any danger with the Dragon Emperor Douluo protecting him. Lu Yuan crossed his legs and sat down. His golden dragon was instantly attached to his body, and a loud dragon roar sounded. The golden dragon's aura instantly spread. Star Doe Forest, deep in the lake of life. Just as the golden dragon's roar sounded, a silver-white figure suddenly opened his eyes in a strange space deep in the lake of life. Familiar bloodline undulations. Is it him? Dition. The silver-white figure's voice sounded. "Master." A black figure appeared and knelt on one knee. This was a middle-aged man with a dignified look. His eyes were golden, and he exuded an indescribable aura. There were strands of golden hair in his long black hair. He was the leader of the 10 great savage beasts, the Golden Eyes Black Dragon King, the beast god Dition. Since Dition had appeared and addressed him as master, this silver-white figure's identity was obvious. "That kid from back then is here. Go and bring him back. I want to see him," the silver-white figure said. "Yes, master." Dition nodded slightly. He recalled the scene from back then, and his heart trembled slightly. After Dition finished speaking, his figure disappeared once again. Only this silver-white figure was left in this strange space. His eyes opened slightly. They were a pair of bright purple eyes. He opened his right hand slightly, and the vast sea cosmic barrier flew out from between his eyebrows. It landed in Lu Yuan's hand and spun. Lu Yuan injected some soul power into it, and the vast sea cosmic barrier immediately shone with blue light. It flew into the air and stood above Lu Yuan's head. A triangular light barrier immediately enveloped both Lu Yuan and Long Xiaoyao. It was none other than the vast ocean protective cover that could conceal one's aura. Even though Long Xiaoyao, an ultimate Douluo, was protecting him, it was clearly safer this way. Lu Yuan wouldn't allow any accidents to happen while he was absorbing the soul rings. If anything went wrong, his soul power would go berserk, and that would be extremely dangerous. Master's vast sea cosmic shroud is just as stunning no matter how many times I look at it, Long Xiaoyao exclaimed. The vast sea cosmic shroud gave him the feeling of a vast ocean. It was deep and distant, and even his soul power as an ultimate Douluo wasn't enough in front of it. Long Xiaoyao suspected that the vast sea cosmic shroud wasn't an ordinary item. It was likely to be a godly item. Only a god's godly item could have the power to shock an ultimate Douluo. After hearing Long Xiaoyao's words, Lu Yuan smiled. The vast sea cosmic shroud was the core item of the sea god's trident. It was called the sea god's heart, and the sea god's trident was a genuine supergodly item. It wasn't an ordinary item. The sea god's heart was its core item, and contained an extremely vast and pure power of the ocean. It was a rare treasure. Lu Yuan waved at the dark golden Terraclaw bear's soul ring, and the soul ring flew to the top of his head. Instantly, a strong and domineering force entered Lu Yuan's body through his Baihui acupoint. The dark golden Terraclaw bear was one of the most powerful soul beasts. Its strength was violent and ferocious, and it was also very aggressive. Other soul masters, even soul emperors, might not be able to absorb the soul ring of this 15,000-year dark golden Terraclaw bear. However, this wasn't a problem for Lu Yuan. The dark golden Terraclaw bear was indeed violent, but the golden dragon was even more violent and ferocious. As the golden dragon that possessed the purest golden dragon king bloodline, they were the strongest soul beasts when it came to violence. Even the dark golden Terraclaw bear had to bow its head before them. Not only did Lu Yuan possess the golden dragon martial soul, but he also possessed the purest second-generation golden dragon bloodline. How could a mere dark golden Terraclaw bear do anything to him? Needless to say, Lu Yuan's Clear Air Sutra also contained the Clear Air Divine Seed's Clear Air Divine Power, as well as the power of the ocean from the vast sea cosmic shroud, which was also the sea god's heart. The quality of his soul power was the highest on the continent. Refining the dark golden Terraclaw bear's strength was a piece of cake. As Lu Yuan sensed the strength of the dark golden Terraclaw bear's soul ring, he secretly circulated the power of the golden dragon's bloodline to suppress this strength. At the same time, he used the Clear Air Sutra to slowly refine it. Just as Lu Yuan was refining the soul ring, a black figure appeared less than 5 kilometers away from where Lu Yuan was. It was the leader of the 10 great savage beasts, the beast god Ditian. That's strange. Why did the bloodline aura suddenly disappear? Ditian's golden eyes were filled with doubt. He could clearly feel the pure golden dragon's aura just now. Why did it suddenly disappear? Ditian was puzzled. He found a direction and quickly disappeared. Just now, his bloodline aura had disappeared because Lu Yuan had activated the vast sea cosmos shroud. With the vast sea cosmos shroud around, Ditian wouldn't have been able to detect Lu Yuan's aura, no matter how profound his cultivation was. This was the difference between a mortal and a god. Although Ditian was known as the beast god, his abilities were far from that of a god. At most, he wasn't far from Long Xiaoyao. He wasn't even a demigod. After all, Ditian wasn't the same as he would be 10,000 years later. Of course, Long Xiaoyao wasn't Ditian's match if they really fought, because he had the dragon god's claw. Inside the vast sea protective barrier, Lu Yuan's body flashed with golden light. The Clear Air Sutra's soul power was quickly refining the dark golden Terraclaw bear's soul power. Although the dark golden Terraclaw Bear's soul power was domineering and sharp, it was already being defeated by the Golden Dragon's aura and the clear Air Sutra. As for the remnant resentment in the dark golden Terraclaw Bear's soul power, it was instantly neutralized by the clear Air Sutra, which was used to deal with resentment and evil. There was still one last battle in his mind. The dark golden Terraclaw Bear roared into the sky. This was its spirit fragment, which was also known as spiritual shock. This was also the most difficult part of absorbing a 10,000-year soul ring. However, this didn't seem to be the case for Lu Yuan. When the dark golden Terraclaw Bear's spirit fragment appeared and roared, a bright white light locked it in place. Boundless clear Air Sutra's divine power surged towards the dark golden Terraclaw Bear's spirit fragment like floodwaters. The dark golden Terraclaw Bear's body froze. Under the clear Air Sutra's divine power, its spirit fragment couldn't resist at all. It was instantly locked in place, and couldn't move at all. At this moment, the golden dragon martial soul in Lu Yuan's mind let out a resonant dragon roar. It flapped its huge dragon wings and opened its bloody mouth, swallowing the dark golden Terraclaw Bear's soul fragment into its stomach. Lu Yuan's tightly shut eyes opened almost instantly. His double pupils flashed with a bright light. Chapter 209. Master. Seeing that Lu Yuan had opened his eyes, Long Xiaoyao immediately came forward and asked, "Are you done absorbing it?" "Yes." Lu Yuan nodded and said, "This dark golden Terraclaw Bear is indeed one of the most powerful soul beasts in terms of offensive strength. It's indeed extraordinary. It gave me a very good soul skill. My third soul skill is called the Heaven-Ripping Golden Dragon Claw. It's extremely powerful. Even defense-type soul masters who aren't soul kings won't be able to block it. Even for soul kings, unless they're purely defense-type soul masters, they'll still have their stomachs ripped open if they're caught. It's just that they'll have to expend more soul power to do so. The stronger the soul skill, the more soul power it consumes. This is very normal. Master soul skill is already very good. Is there a limit to the number of times it can be used?" Long Xiaoyao asked. "There isn't. As long as I have enough soul power, I can use it continuously. With my current soul power, I can only use the Heaven-Ripping Golden Dragon Claw 4 times before my soul power is completely depleted," Lu Yuan said plainly. Lu Yuan cultivated the clear aura scripture. His soul power was much stronger than other soul masters of the same rank. If he could use it 4 times before his soul power would be completely depleted, one could only imagine how much soul power this skill consumed. Should I say that it's indeed a 10,000-year soul skill? However, taking into account the clear aura scripture's superb recovery, this skill should be able to be used casually unless he used it 4 times in a row. Furthermore, this dark golden Terraclaw Bear truly deserves its reputation as a transcendent soul beast in terms of strength, defense, and offense. After absorbing its soul ring, my physique has become much stronger. Furthermore, my soul power has reached rank 33. This is a pleasant surprise. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. He was very satisfied with this soul ring. At rank 33, he had an additional 10,000-year soul ring and such a powerful 10,000-year soul skill. His fighting strength was no longer comparable to that of a low-level soul king. Instead, he could fight against a soul king. 2 external soul bones, a 15,000-year soul ring from the dark golden Terraclaw Bear, and the clear aura scripture. These things were enough for Lu Yuan to fight against those of a higher rank. Even if he didn't use his polychoria, his fighting strength was comparable to that of a normal soul king. If he used his polychoria, he might even be able to win. The soul kings mentioned here were the best combination of soul kings, not ordinary soul kings. If he could comprehend the halberd arts of the sea god's 13 halberds in the future, then Lu Yuan's battle prowess would rise again. The current Lu Yuan could be said to have caught up with Chihiro Snow. Of course, this referred to his combat power. However, thinking about how Chihiro Snow might have already obtained his fifth soul ring, Lu Yuan's combat strength should still be slightly inferior to Chihiro Snow's if he didn't use his trump card. Oh, that's not bad. Long Xiaoyao laughed. I don't know if the dark golden Terraclaw bear has a soul bone. I remember that the dark golden Terraclaw bear is similar to the man-faced demon spider. It has a high chance of dropping a soul bone. Long Xiaoyao said. How can I be so lucky? Lu Yuan smiled. He was already extremely lucky to have obtained an external soul bone from each of the first 2 soul rings he killed. How could there be another soul bone? He wasn't the son of destiny. What if there really is one? Long Xiaoyao chortled and said. Then you can look for it. Lu Yuan waved his hand, and the vast sea cosmic shroud flew into his hand. After that, he kept it between his eyebrows. Long Xiaoyao really went to look for a soul bone from the dark golden Terraclaw bear's corpse. Long Xiaoyao chopped off the dark golden Terraclaw bear's paws, and Lu Yuan kept them. The dark golden Terraclaw bear's paws were extremely delicious, and couldn't be missed. It's a pity that there aren't any palm bones. Long Xiaoyao shook his head. The dark golden Terraclaw bear's most powerful soul bone was its palm bones, which were its claws. It was a pity that it didn't drop this one. It's normal that you don't have one. Lu Yuan didn't mind. While the chances of a 10,000-year soul beast dropping a soul bone were higher than that of a 1,000-year soul beast, it wasn't guaranteed that there would be one. After all, the dark golden Terraclaw bear wasn't a 100,000-year soul beast. I just find it a pity. Long Xiaoyao sighed slightly. Suddenly, his eyes brightened. There seemed to be a dark golden luster at the joint of the dark golden Terraclaw bear's severed arms. Long Xiaoyao exclaimed. He seemed to have discovered something. He took a step forward and gently swiped his right hand in the air. Don't tell me there really is one? Lu Yuan was also astonished as he watched Long Xiaoyao's actions. Long Xiaoyao sucked with his palm, and a bone-like item flew towards him. His soul power trembled in his hand, and a dark golden bone appeared in his hand. He took a look at it before passing it to Lu Yuan. Is this a right arm bone? Lu Yuan sized up the dark golden Terraclaw bear's right arm bone in his hand. It was rather complete and could be considered quite precious. While it was only 15,000 years old, it came from a transcendent soul beast, the dark golden Terraclaw bear. While it wasn't as valuable as a 100,000-year soul bone, it wasn't inferior to any soul bone from a 100,000-year soul beast. It could definitely be considered a treasure. Master, why don't you absorb it? While this soul bone is rather young, it's rather complete. It's not bad, Long Xiaoyao said. Lu Yuan shook his head gently and said, Forget it, keep it. I won't let my soul bones go to waste. Besides the external soul bones, my other soul bones have to be at least 100,000 years old. This soul bone's rank is still a little low, but I can keep it. I can give it to someone in the future. As Lu Yuan spoke, he kept it in his astral ring. This dark golden Terraclaw bear's right arm bone was rather precious. It would be a good item to use to win people over in the future. At this moment, a black figure flashed 2.5 kilometers away. I've finally found your aura again. The black figure flashed past and instantly broke through the restraints of space. It headed in Lu Yuan's direction. Master, are we going back now? Long Xiaoyao asked. After hearing this, Lu Yuan fell into deep thought. He hadn't heard the system's sign-in notification until now. However, he had already circled the Great Star Dough Forest a few times, and had even entered the hybrid region. However, the system still hadn't responded. Do I have to enter the core region before I can sign in? Lu Yuan guessed in his heart. As for going back, he definitely couldn't go back now. He still had to complete the system's mission. After all, the rewards were very generous. As he looked at Long Xiaoyao, Lu Yuan was about to speak. Suddenly, a huge hole appeared in space, and a huge black dragon claw reached out. Before Long Xiaoyao could even react, the dragon claw grabbed Lu Yuan. After that, it quickly withdrew into space and disappeared. When he saw this, Long Xiaoyao was shocked. After that, he was enraged. "Who are you? Let go of my master!" Long Xiaoyao roared into the sky and chased after Lu Yuan. Chapter 210. Lu Yuan looked at the huge black dragon claw that was grabbing onto him, and his heart trembled. There was only one person in the entire Great Star Do Forest who could do this: the leader of the 10 great savage beasts, the golden-eyed black dragon king, Di Tian. But why is Di Tian grabbing me? Lu Yuan was puzzled. It would be a lie if Lu Yuan said that he did not have a trace of fear in his heart when he was targeted by a powerful expert like Di Tian. However, Lu Yuan's state of mind was calm. Since he was already in the palm of Di Tian's hand, even if he was afraid, it would be useless. With Di Tian's abilities, even Long Xiaoyao might not be able to save him. At this moment, Di Tian was still in human form, but one of his claws was a dragon's claw. Lu Yuan was caught in the palm of his hand by this claw. What is this? Is this partial transformation? Even Lu Yuan couldn't understand Di Tian's current state. Is this an ability unique to savage beasts? The black dragon claw gradually became smaller, and Lu Yuan returned to his human form. However, Lu Yuan was being held by Di Tian by his clothes. Di Tian picked up speed as he carried Lu Yuan. He was heading towards the core of the Great Star Do Forest. Just as Di Tian disappeared from where he was, Long Xiaoyao appeared where Di Tian had been. "This is my master's aura." Long Xiaoyao sensed the remnant aura of the golden dragon's bloodline in the air, and a sharp look flashed across his eyes. He followed this aura towards the core of the Great Star Do Forest. "You don't seem afraid." As they moved forward, Di Tian looked at Lu Yuan, who still had a calm expression on his face. There was a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Was this child not afraid at all? "Is there any use in being afraid?" Lu Yuan asked. "Ugh, there's no use," Di Tian replied. "Do you know who I am?" Di Tian asked. "I know a little," Lu Yuan said calmly. "Oh." Di Tian was a little surprised. He hadn't appeared in the world for a long time. Logically speaking, the soul masters in the outside world shouldn't know about him. Other than the servants of some gods who might know a little about him, the other soul masters shouldn't know about his existence at all. And Lu Yuan actually said that he knew a little about it. Could it be that this child still had memories of his childhood? That shouldn't be the case. At that time, he had just been born. He hadn't even opened his eyes yet. It was impossible for him to know about him. "Then who do you think I am?" Di Tian asked curiously. Lu Yuan looked at Di Tian with a puzzled expression. He didn't know why, but he felt that Di Tian didn't seem to have any enmity towards him. Furthermore, it was as if he had seen him before. What was going on? "Heh, why aren't you saying anything? I'm guessing that you don't know who I am either," Di Tian said indifferently. There was actually a hint of a smile on his face. Lu Yuan was just about to speak when Di Tian's expression suddenly changed. "Someone is chasing after us. Furthermore, he's not weak." As he spoke, Di Tian increased his speed again. The person chasing after them gave him a rather strong sense of pressure. He had to send Lu Yuan to the core area first. Otherwise, he might not be able to defeat the person chasing after them while he was carrying Lu Yuan. "It's Elder Long," Lu Yuan said. "You know him?" Di Tian increased his speed, but he didn't forget to ask questions. "Yes, he's my subordinate," Lu Yuan said. "You captured me. That's why he's chasing after us." "Speaking of which, why did you capture me?" Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with confusion. "Don't worry. I don't have any ill intentions towards you. It's just that someone wants to see you," Di Tian said, but he didn't slow down at all. An ultimate Douluo was very fast, especially when Di Tian was flying at full speed. In just a few minutes, Lu Yuan had already left the hybrid region and entered the core area. As for why Lu Yuan knew that he had already entered the core area, it was because Lu Yuan had already seen the boundless, jade-green lake below. It was the lake of life. At this moment, the system's voice finally sounded. Sign-in begins. Sign-in time is half an hour. Countdown begins. Indeed, do I have to enter the core area to sign in? Lu Yuan muttered to himself. Roar. Di Tian was approaching when a beast's roar suddenly sounded. A huge ape was beating its chest and roaring into the sky. Following this, a huge bull's head popped out from the lake of life. It was staring in Di Tian's direction. Di Tian's figure flashed, and he came to the lakeside. His aura surged, and the aura of the 800,000-year golden eyes Black Dragon King surged out. Instantly, it pressed down on the two soul beasts. Guard your door well. Don't bother about anything else, Di Tian said. His voice carried a sense of authority that couldn't be defied. Yes, Lord Di Tian. The huge bull's head looked at Di Tian's figure and lowered its head slightly. Di Tian nodded slightly and said, Someone will come later. You two stop him. I'll make a move first. Yes. The bull's head nodded again. With that, Di Tian grabbed Lu Yuan and disappeared once again. As it watched Di Tian's figure disappear, the bull's head looked at Lu Yuan in Di Tian's hand. There was a trace of doubt in its eyes. No one knew what it was thinking. At this moment, Long Xiaoyao's figure appeared. The bull's eyes sharpened. It opened its huge mouth, and a pillar of water shot towards Long Xiaoyao. Beside it, the huge ape also punched towards Long Xiaoyao. Long Xiaoyao's eyes blazed with fury when he saw this scene. He was already furious because Lu Yuan had been captured. This time, his fury was completely unleashed. Sky Azure Bull Python, Titan Giant Ape, you're courting death! Long Xiaoyao roared furiously. As his dragon roar rang out, a deep black light spread. It was a huge black dragon. Yellow, purple, black, red, and red soul rings shone with beautiful colors. The dragon Emperor Douluo, Long Xiaoyao, had the martial soul of the darkness holy dragon. He was a rank 99 ultimate Douluo, and his soul rings were 2 yellow, 2 purple, 3 black, and 2 red. He had 200,000-year soul rings at the same time. Other than Bibidon, who had twin martial souls, no one else in the world could compare to him. Even Sendoryu and Pasizi only had 100,000-year soul ring. Of course, that was only true for now. In the future, it was hard to say. At the very least, people like Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow would have more than 100,000-year soul ring. Long Xiaoyao was furious. He attacked the 200,000-year soul beast. He didn't intend to hold back. The battle was about to begin. Di Tian brought Lu Yuan forward for another distance. The life energy here had already reached a certain level. Just by taking 2 light breaths, one could feel that it was full of life energy. Di Tian's figure slowly descended, and Lu Yuan finally stepped onto land. This feeling of being on solid ground was very comfortable. As he felt the rich life energy coming from all directions, Lu Yuan couldn't help but take a few deep breaths. He immediately felt refreshed. Chapter 211. What do you think? Di Tian asked as he looked at the intoxicated Lu Yuan. It's indeed a good place to cultivate. Lu Yuan was right. The life energy around the Lake of Life was very dense, and was very beneficial for cultivation. If he cultivated here, Lu Yuan's speed would at least double. Of course, the Lake of Life is a treasure of the Soul Beast clan, Di Tian said. The Lake of Life contained the densest life energy in the entire Great Star Doe Forest. There was even life gold at the bottom of the lake, and the dense life energy could increase a soul beast's cultivation speed. At the same time, it was very beneficial for the recovery of injuries. Of course, it was also very useful for soul beasts that were more than 100,000 years old. It was also because of this that only soul beasts that were more than 100,000 years old had the right to live around the Lake of Life. The world of soul beasts followed the law of the jungle. The law of the jungle was the only rule in the world of soul beasts. Strictly speaking, the Lake of Life wasn't circular. On the contrary, it was a semicircle with some bump. The sky azure bull python and the titan giant ape were only at the edge of the semicircle, and the life energy there was the thinnest. The most dented part of the semicircle was the closest to the center, where the life gold was. The life energy there was the densest, and all savage beasts that were more than 100,000 years old lived there. As the beast god, Dtion was undoubtedly the #1 savage beast. The place where he lived was naturally the best, and where the life energy was the densest. Dtion was usually the only one who lived here. However, when Lu Yuan came today, there was a green-haired lady here. For her to be able to stay in a place like this, there was no doubt that this woman was also a soul beast. Furthermore, she should be very close to Dtion. Lu Yuan couldn't help but make some guesses when he felt the life aura coming from this woman. Why are you still talking to me here? Aren't you going to take a look at those two soul beasts? I think they won't be far from death if we delay them for another 2 minutes. Lu Yuan smiled as he looked at Dtion. The sky azure bull python and titan giant ape were indeed very powerful, and almost all of them were capable of battling hyper Douluos at or above rank 95. The sky azure bull python was comparable to a rank 96 hyper Douluo, and it could even contend with a rank 97 hyper Douluo. However, their opponent was Long Xiaoyao, a rank 99 ultimate Douluo. Even if the two soul beasts teamed up, they would be killed by Long Xiaoyao in less than 10 minutes. This wasn't a joke. This was how strong an ultimate Douluo was. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a limit. The so-called limit was the highest level that could be reached below the god. As for demigods, they no longer belonged to the category of humans. Instead, they had 1 foot in the realm of gods. There was only one true demigod on the Douluo continent right now, and that was the deep-sea demon whale king, a million-year soul beast. Even Dtion could only barely reach this level with his dragon god's claw. If he really fought with the deep-sea demonic whale king, the outcome might not be certain. The possibility of Dtion losing was very high. After all, the current Dtion was not the same as 10,000 years later. Whether it was in terms of realm or cultivation, he was still a bit lacking. You're still worried about the life and death of soul beasts? Dtion looked at Lu Yuan with a strange look in his eyes. I'm not worried about their life and death. I'm just worried that, if they die at the hands of my people, you'll kill me with a slap, Lu Yuan said. After all, they're both 100,000-year soul beasts. Their status among soul beasts shouldn't be low, right? After hearing Lu Yuan's words, the green-haired lady burst into laughter. She looked at Lu Yuan with a curious look in her eyes. You're honest. There was a hint of a smile on Dtion's face. This child really wasn't like those cunning humans. He spoke honestly and didn't hide his thoughts at all. However, you're wrong. Even if they die, I won't do anything to you. You're much more important than them. Dtion smiled and said, however, you're right. 200,000-year soul beasts are a rare fighting force. It's a pity if they die. I'll make a trip there first. Furthermore, I'd like to see how strong that human is. Dtion had been invincible for too long. There wasn't a single soul beast in the Great Star Do Forest that could threaten him. Even the Bear Lord could only injure him with his sky-tearing claw. If they really fought, the Bear Lord was far from his match. However, Long Xiaoyao was different. He was a true ultimate Douluo, and could pose a huge threat to Dtion. Then be careful. Elder Long is very strong. Don't lose in the end. Lu Yuan smiled. After interacting with Dtion for such a short period of time, he was no longer afraid of him. This was because Dtion didn't have any intention of hurting him. Lu Yuan's spiritual sense was extraordinary, and he could still sense this. Perhaps it was because both of them had pure dragon bloodlines, but Lu Yuan didn't reject Di Tian's aura at all. Instead, he felt a sense of closeness. Perhaps Di Tian was the only soul beast in the Douluo continent that had pure dragon bloodlines apart from him and the Silver Dragon King. I've never lost before. Di Tian's words were filled with dominance. He had dominated the Great Star Do Forest for so many years, but he had never met a worthy opponent. Bai Ji, look after this fellow. I'll go and meet that human. As he spoke, he disappeared. Not long after, the sky not far away was engulfed in darkness. Dragon roars echoed throughout the entire core region. Di Tian, who is he fighting? In a cave, a huge dark golden bear opened its eyes. There's actually a soul beast that dares to challenge Di Tian? There was a look of astonishment in the bear's eyes. I'll go and take a look. As it spoke, its huge body rushed in the direction of the battle. This dark golden bear wasn't the only one that was alarmed by this commotion. TSK, the Darkness Holy Dragon is fighting the golden-eyed Black Dragon King. This battle is going to be interesting. As he looked at the dark sky in the distance, Lu Yuan knew that it was because both parties had used their domains. How could the sky not turn dark when two dark domains were used at the same time? You don't seem worried at all? Bai Ji's gentle voice rang out. Lu Yuan looked over when he heard her voice. Bai Ji's original form was a 500,000-year emerald swan. She was a healing-type soul beast and was very kind. She was a very special existence among all the savage beasts. It was said that she was Di Tian's lover, and had a very high status among soul beasts. After hearing Bai Ji's words, Lu Yuan said, "What are you worried about? Even if Elder Long can't defeat Di Tian won't be able to stop him if he wants to leave." Long Xiaoyao's strength was comparable to Di Tian's. As long as Di Tian didn't use his Dragon God's Claw, he wouldn't be able to take Long Xiaoyao down. Even if Di Tian used his Dragon God's Claw, Long Xiaoyao wouldn't have a problem retreating. Therefore, Lu Yuan wasn't worried at all. Chapter 212. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Bai Ji couldn't help but exclaim. From Lu Yuan's words, that human soul master seemed to be very strong. Even Di Tian couldn't stop him. But how was that possible? Others didn't understand Di Tian's strength, but she did. Di Tian was definitely one of the top fighters in the world. However, Lu Yuan said that he couldn't even take down a human soul master. Could it be that human soul masters were already so strong these days? Seeing Bai Ji's shocked expression, Lu Yuan naturally knew what she was thinking. However, he didn't explain, because he knew that this battle wouldn't last for long. Whether it was Di Tian or Long Xiaoyao, they weren't fools. As long as Long Xiaoyao knew that Di Tian didn't have any ill intentions towards him, the battle would naturally stop. Di Tian also wouldn't fight to the death with Long Xiaoyao. After all, Long Xiaoyao would definitely be enraged if he saw that he was captured. He definitely wouldn't stop, because he was 100% loyal to Di Tian. If Di Tian was forced into a corner, he might even take Long Xiaoyao down with him. Although Di Tian was stronger than Long Xiaoyao after using his Dragon God's Claw, Di Tian wouldn't be spared if Long Xiaoyao wanted to drag him down with him. With Di Tian's intelligence, he would naturally tell Long Xiaoyao that he was fine in such a situation. As long as Di Tian explained himself, the battle would naturally end. Lu Yuan's eyes darted around, and he started to ponder. Di Tian probably kidnapped him because of his bloodline. Furthermore, Di Tian said that someone wanted to see him, and that someone who could order Di Tian around, this person's identity was obvious. Lu Yuan looked into the depths of the Lake of Life. The person who wanted to see him should be at the bottom of the Lake of Life. Lu Yuan's polychoria flashed, and he seemed to see through the barrier of the lake water. He saw a silver-white figure. Another quarter of an hour had passed. The battle in the distance had stopped. Di Tian's figure appeared. His black clothes were a little messy, but he didn't seem to be injured. He was carrying two huge soul beasts in his hands. They were the sky azure bull python and the Titan giant ape. However, they looked a little miserable. The Titan giant ape's body was covered in wounds. There was a large hole in its abdomen that was still bleeding. There was a large bump on the sky azure bull python's head, and a small portion of its scales had fallen off. Blood was seeping out of the wound, and it seemed to have lost a small section of its body. Tsk tisk, Elder Long is really ruthless. If D. Tian had been any later, these two soul beasts would have been dead by now. The sky azure bull python's injuries were even more severe than the Titan giant ape's, and it appeared that Elder Long had taken special care of it due to its power. D. Tian placed the two soul beasts down and said to Bai Ji, "Bai Ji, heal them." Bai Ji nodded as a jade-green light flashed and landed on the two soul beasts. While the two soul beasts were severely injured, Bai Ji was an emerald swan with more than 500,000 years of cultivation. She was the strongest healing-type soul beast, and it wasn't difficult for her to heal them. "Where's Elder Long?" Lu Yuan furrowed his brow and asked when he saw that Long Xiaoyao didn't follow Di Tian. "My lord, I'm here." Just as Lu Yuan finished speaking, Long Xiaoyao's figure appeared. He was dragging a huge dark golden terraclaw bear in his hands. His body was covered in wounds, and it seemed like he had been beaten up quite badly. "Elder Long, what's this?" Lu Yuan couldn't help but ask. "My lord, I had just finished fighting with this beast god when this black bear ambushed me. I was enraged and fought with it. While this black bear wasn't weak, I still managed to subdue it," Long Xiaoyao said. After hearing Long Xiaoyao's words, Lu Yuan turned to look at Di Tian. Di Tian's face turned red as Lu Yuan stared at him. After all, it wasn't a glorious thing for his soul beasts to ambush him. "Bear Lord, you bastard! Get over here now!" Di Tian scolded the huge dark golden terraclaw bear. It was this stupid bear's fault. Di Tian was a little embarrassed. However, he didn't intend to give up on the Bear Lord. After all, the Bear Lord was half a step into the ultimate soul stage. In the Great Star Dough Forest, he was second only to Di Tian. Di Tian couldn't give up on someone with such fighting strength. "My lord?" Long Xiaoyao looked at Lu Yuan. "Let him go." Lu Yuan nodded at Long Xiaoyao. "Elder Long, are you injured?" Lu Yuan furrowed his brow and asked when he saw a scratch on Long Xiaoyao's chest. There was some fresh blood on it. "Don't worry, my lord. It's just a small injury. I was accidentally scratched by that black bear," Long Xiaoyao said. After hearing this, Lu Yuan looked at the Bear Lord with a cold look in his eyes. However, this cold look disappeared very quickly. They couldn't do anything to the Bear Lord with Di Tian around. However, he would still teach the Bear Lord a lesson when he was strong enough in the future. His people couldn't be bullied by just anyone. It was fine if he fought head-on, but he actually launched a sneak attack. This was unforgivable. However, the Bear Lord actually launched a sneak attack. This didn't seem to match the dark golden terraclaw bear's personality. Could it be that the Bear Lord's personality had changed after he was beaten up by Di Tian? This wasn't impossible. "Elder Bai Ji, I'll have to trouble you to treat Elder Long's injuries," Lu Yuan said as he looked at Bai Ji. After speaking, Lu Yuan looked at Di Tian. "Didn't you say someone wanted to see me? We can set off now." "All right." Di Tian nodded and said to Bai Ji, "Bai Ji, when the Myriad Demon King and the rest arrive, ask them to wait here. Also, don't get into a conflict with that human. I'll bring him over first." After hearing this, Bai Ji nodded. "Master?" Long Xiaoyao looked at Lu Yuan. He wanted to say something, but he didn't. There was a worried look in his eyes. "It's all right, Elder Long. Just wait here for me to return." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Yes, master." Long Xiaoyao couldn't persuade Lu Yuan any further after seeing that he had made up his mind. He could only agree. "Let's go." Lu Yuan nodded at Di Tian. Alright, Di Tian responded. After that, he grabbed Lu Yuan's body and quickly disappeared. Di Tian was extremely quick. After another 10 minutes, he stopped in his tracks. They were still beside the Lake of Life. However, the life energy here was much denser than where Di Tian had been. The life energy fused into his body without him needing to refine it. If he cultivated here, Lu Yuan was confident that his cultivation speed would increase by 3 or even 4 times. However, this seemed to be a forbidden area. Even though the life energy was extremely dense, there wasn't even a single blade of grass. Di Tian changed his hand seals, and the Lake of Life slowly parted to reveal a pitch-black, circular door. From the looks of it, it was a little similar to the life ruins that Lu Yuan had been to before. They were both related to the use of spatial power. Other than soul masters who could control the spatial elements, only peak Douluo and ultimate Douluo could use spatial power. However, it wasn't surprising that Di Tian could do so given his cultivation. Chapter 213. Di Tian took the lead, and Lu Yuan followed closely behind him. Since they were already here, there was no turning back. Moreover, Lu Yuan was also very curious about how the famous Silver Dragon King Guyuna in the original work was like. As they stepped into the spatial door, a silver light flashed, and a white path of light appeared beneath their feet. There were silver-white screens on both sides of the path of light, and they were displaying the core of the great Star Do forest. Lu Yuan could even see Long Xiaoyao's face clearly. He was one of the soul beasts that he didn't recognize around Baiji. However, from their appearances, they should be the remaining few savage beasts. Di Tian seemed to have noticed the doubt in Lu Yuan's eyes and said, "This is a way of using spatial power. It can reflect what's happening outside into it. Even if we can't leave, we can still obtain the information we want." Lu Yuan glanced at Di Tian and said, "I don't think this white path of light and the surrounding silver-white screens are your handiwork. Why do you say that?" Di Tian looked at Lu Yuan and smiled. "Your true form is a golden-eyed Black Dragon King. Aside from the Gold and Silver Dragon King and the 9 sons of the Dragon God, you're the current patriarch of the Black Dragon King clan with the purest dragon bloodline. You're proficient in the power of darkness, and you do have some understanding of the power of space. However, you can't do this with your current cultivation unless you can improve further." Lu Yuan said, "Therefore, I'm guessing that this isn't your handiwork. It must have been set up by someone who's adept at spatial power." "Ah, so you do know a little about me. You're not lying." Di Tian looked at Lu Yuan, and there was a tinge of astonishment in his eyes. "I never lie," Lu Yuan said. "Ha!" Di Tian laughed and said, "You're right. This isn't my handiwork. It's the handiwork of someone else." Lu Yuan nodded. "Why? Aren't you curious who that person is?" Di Tian asked. "Aren't we going to see her now?" Lu Yuan looked at Di Tian and asked. "Hey, you're pretty smart." The corners of Di Tian's mouth curled up into a light smile. This kid's mind was truly extraordinary. The two of them continued walking. Suddenly, on the right side of the light screen, a snow-white voice entered Lu Yuan's eyes. It was a large snow-white silkworm with several rings of golden patterns on its body. Lu Yuan carefully counted them. There were a total of 9 rings. The snow-white silkworm seemed to be trapped in the golden pillar of light. Visible primal energies of the universe emanated from its body and flowed into the many huge nests in front of it. However, these nests were now empty. "Is that the Skydream Iceworm?" Lu Yuan mused. After that, he saw that Di Tian didn't seem to have noticed anything. Di Tian shifted his gaze away, as though he didn't see anything. However, what Lu Yuan didn't see was that after Lu Yuan shifted his gaze away, the golden pillar of light that was imprisoning the Skydream Iceworm seemed to have traces of imperceptible cracks. Furthermore, these cracks were gradually deepening. although these tiny cracks were almost undetectable when compared to the enormous size of the pillar of light. An ant's nest could collapse a 1,000-mile dike. There would be a day when this golden pillar of light would completely collapse. Finally, the white path of light reached its end. With a flash of silver-white light, Lu Yuan appeared in a strange space. This space wasn't dark at all. On the contrary, it was very bright. Pieces of dazzling purple crystals emitted resplendent light, rendering the entire space extremely gorgeous. On the other side of this space, there was an enormous silver dragon that was hundreds of meters long. It had 2 silver horns on its head, and its entire body was covered in fine, hexagonal silver scales. It had a silver tail that was hundreds of meters long, and a pair of enormous dragon wings were spread out behind its back. At this moment it was crawling on the ground. Its enormous dragon head was watching Lu Yuan and Di Tian. Its purple eyes were filled with an indescribable nobility. Di Tian pays his respects to my lord. Di Tian knelt on one knee and bowed towards the enormous silver dragon. His attitude was extremely respectful. "Is this the Silver Dragon King?" Lu Yuan muttered to himself as he looked at the enormous silver dragon in front of him. Its aura is rather impressive, but it actually has the appearance of a giant dragon. Where's the promised peerless beauty, Gu Yuna? Bad review. Perhaps Gu Yuna's body was extremely beautiful in the eyes of dragons, but Lu Yuan was a human. He couldn't appreciate the beauty of a giant dragon. Is this the child from back then? The dragon opened its head slightly, and a sweet-sounding female voice rang out beside Lu Yuan's ear. This voice isn't bad." A trace of astonishment appeared on Lu Yuan's face. He thought that it would be a boorish voice. He didn't expect it to be so clear and pleasant. "Yes, my lord," Di Tian said. "Hurry up and bow to my lord," Di Tian said to Lu Yuan. "Bow? Why should I bow?" Lu Yuan looked at Di Tian and said, "She's the Silver Dragon King, and I have the Golden Dragon bloodline. Why should I bow to her? She's not my lord." "Brat, how dare you!" Di Tian's face was filled with anger. He immediately shouted and raised his dragon claw slightly. "Di Tian, stop!" The Silver Dragon King's voice rang out. Her purple eyes looked at Lu Yuan with an indescribable majesty in her eyes. Lu Yuan's body trembled as he felt a strong pressure on his body. This pressure had nothing to do with strength, but came from his bloodline. "Humph!" Lu Yuan growled, and his Golden Dragon martial soul and Golden Dragon bloodline burst forth at the same time. Golden light shone, and dragon roars could be heard. The clear energy and the power of the vast ocean also surged crazily, helping Lu Yuan to ease the pressure. Yellow, purple, and black soul rings rippled around Lu Yuan's body. Although Lu Yuan's body was heavy, he still stood upright. The Silver Dragon King's bloodline was indeed superior to the second-generation Golden Dragon Kings. It was comparable to the Golden Dragon Kings. It could also suppress Lu Yuan's second-generation Golden Dragon bloodline to a certain extent. However, the Golden Dragon bloodline came from the Golden Dragon King, not the Silver Dragon King. The Silver Dragon King's bloodline didn't have a significant effect on the Golden Dragon King's bloodline because the two bloodlines came from different sources. Furthermore, Lu Yuan's bloodline was second only to the Golden Dragon King's, and it was one of the highest existences in the dragon race. He also had the clear energy and the power of the vast ocean to ease the pressure. Although the Silver Dragon King's bloodline pressure still existed, it was extremely difficult to make him crawl. However, if the Silver Dragon King was replaced by the Golden Dragon King, Lu Yuan would still have to crawl because it was the source of his bloodline. Unless his bloodline could evolve, he wouldn't be affected. What a pure bloodline, and the combination of these soul rings is also extraordinary. Seeing that Lu Yuan could still stand under the Silver Dragon King's bloodline pressure, Di Tian's face was filled with amazement. Even though he still had to crawl under the Silver Dragon King's pressure, Lu Yuan's body only sank slightly. This meant that Lu Yuan's bloodline was purer than his. Chapter 214. Among the 9 sons of the dragon, apart from the Mountain Dragon King, who was the leader of the 9 great dragon kings, and the Golden Dragon, who was the strongest of the 9 great dragon kings, the rest of the dragon kings all controlled the power of the elements. As long as they controlled the power of the elements, their bloodlines would be completely crushed by the Silver Dragon King. This was because the Dragon God had been split into 2 by the Azura God and transformed into the Silver Dragon King and the Golden Dragon King. The Golden Dragon King controlled the Dragon God's most powerful physical strength, while the Silver Dragon King controlled the Dragon God's elemental power. Any dragon that dominated with physical strength, such as the descendants of the Golden Dragon and the Mountain Dragon King, would be completely crushed by the Golden Dragon King. As long as it was a dragon that controlled the power of the elements, it would be completely crushed by the Silver Dragon. On the other hand, the Golden Dragon could also suppress the dragons that controlled the elements, but that was because its bloodline was pure, so it couldn't completely crush the dragons like the Silver Dragon. On the other hand, the Silver Dragon was also the same to the dragons with the Golden Dragon's bloodline. Of course, this referred to the giant dragons with pure bloodlines. As for the subdragons or mixed blood dragons with inferior bloodlines, both the Golden Dragon and the Silver Dragon could completely suppress them. For example, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon was very famous, but it was actually just a subdragon species. Furthermore, the Tyrant Dragon seemed to be related to the Golden Dragon King's bloodline, which was why it was suppressed by Lu Yuan to the point that it couldn't even fight back. If it were the Radiant Holy Dragon, the Golden Dragon could still suppress such a pure-blood giant dragon, but it would be impossible to make it crawl. After all, the Radiant Holy Dragon controlled the power of light, and its bloodline source was different from the Golden Dragon's. There was only a difference in level, and there was no bloodline connection. Therefore, when facing the Silver Dragon King's bloodline suppression, the powerful Dition had to crawl on the ground, but the weak Lu Yuan could still stand. This was because Dition controlled the extreme power of darkness, and his bloodline was directly connected to the Silver Dragon King's bloodline. However, Lu Yuan's second-generation Golden Dragon bloodline didn't. It was that simple. The Silver Dragon King's voice sounded when it saw that Lu Yuan was actually able to resist its bloodline suppression. Not bad. The Silver Dragon King withdrew its suppression and said to Dition, "Dition, you may leave." "Yes." Dition bowed before he turned around and left. Only the Silver Dragon King and Lu Yuan remained in the vast space. "Child, long time no see." The Silver Dragon King said in a gentle voice. "Wait, what did you call me?" Lu Yuan frowned when he heard the Silver Dragon King call him child. "A child?" the Silver Dragon King asked. "Don't, I'm not your bloodline descendant. Don't call me child, it feels weird. Just call me by my name." "Then what is your name?" Silver Dragon King asked. "Lu Yuan." "Lu Yuan? A hidden dragon in the abyss? Not bad." Silver Dragon King said. "But since you told me your name, I'll tell you mine too. My name is Gu Yuna." Silver Dragon King said. "Of course I know that." Lu Yuan thought to himself, but he still praised it. "Good name." "Hee hee." Gu Yuna's clear voice sounded. The voice was very pleasant to hear, but coupled with the dragon's body that was hundreds of meters tall, Lu Yuan had a strange feeling. "By the way, can you transform into a human? It's very tiring for me to raise my head and talk to you," Lu Yuan said. "Transform into a human?" Gu Yuna's huge purple eyes blinked and said, "I'm injured. It's better for me to heal in my original form. However, since you have such a request, it won't affect me much if I transform into a human for a short period of time." As Gu Yuna spoke, a silver-white light was released from her body. When the light dissipated, a graceful figure appeared in front of Lu Yuan. She was about 1.75 meters tall and had long silver hair. Her figure was flawless as if it was carved by the heavens. Her skin was ice and her bones were jade. Her face was as beautiful as a fairy's, and her purple eyes were filled with indescribable mystery and nobility. Beautiful, so beautiful! Gu Yuna's appearance was truly devastatingly beautiful. She was worthy of being ranked as the #1 beauty on the Douluo continent in his previous life. Her appearance was not inferior to Chihiro Snow's at all, and her temperament was even slightly superior. After all, she was once a high and mighty god. Although her strength had declined due to her injuries, her temperament had not dissipated. Lu Yuan felt that Chihiro Snow would only be able to compete with Gu Yuna after becoming a god and gaining the temperament of a god. The current Chihiro Snow was still slightly inferior to Gu Yuna. After all, the most enchanting thing about Chihiro Snow was her holiness, and this holiness could only be fully stimulated after inheriting the divine position of the six-winged angel. Beautiful? Gu Yuna blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at Lu Yuan in confusion. Are you talking about me? Yes. Lu Yuan nodded. You are the first person to say that I am beautiful. Am I really that beautiful? Gu Yuna looked at Lu Yuan and said with a serious expression. Of course, your beauty is rarely matched in this world. How come no one has ever said that before? Lu Yuan asked. No, we soul beasts only care about power, but you seem to care a lot about your appearance, Gu Yuna said as she stroked her own cheek. Of course. Lu Yuan chuckled and said, I am obsessed with appearance. Obsessed with appearance? What is that? Gu Yuna was a little confused by Lu Yuan's words. Obsessed with appearance means that I prefer beautiful women, Lu Yuan explained. You like beautiful women? Gu Yuna looked at Lu Yuan with a strange expression and said, Then you are really not like the soul beasts of the dragon race. We soul beasts worship the strong. I'm not a soul beast, Lu Yuan retorted. We humans prefer those who are beautiful. Then you humans are really strange, Gu Yuna said with a serious expression. Lu Yuan. The current Gu Yuna was still not the Gu Yuna that had experienced the human world in Fighting 3. Her thoughts were still stuck in the world of soul beasts, so in Lu Yuan's eyes, she was more adorable and naive, as if she did not know anything about the world. However, it was normal when he thought about it. The Silver Dragon King had been recuperating at the bottom of the Great Star Do Forest's Lake of Life ever since he escaped from the Divine Realm. He had never interacted with the human world, so it was not strange that his thinking could not change. Did you just say that I am beautiful? Gu Yuna asked. Yes. Lu Yuan nodded. Then do you like me? Gu Yuna asked. Lu Yuan, you are not saying anything because you don't like me? But didn't you say that you like beautiful women? Gu Yuna looked at Lu Yuan with a puzzled expression. Lu Yuan was speechless, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He said, I like beautiful women, but liking and liking are two different things. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Gu Yuna was a little confused. What is the difference between liking and liking? Chapter 2:15. Lu Yuan's lips twitched at the sight of Gu Yuna's serious and perplexed expression. Gu Yuna was very powerful, but she really didn't seem to know anything about love. She was even asking him if he liked her. Lu Yuan was truly speechless. How could he just say that he liked her? Furthermore, she had just called him a child not long ago. With that in mind, Lu Yuan was even more perplexed. What I'm saying is that I like beautiful women, but that doesn't mean that I'll definitely like them. Lu Yuan heaved a resigned sigh before asking, Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't. Gu Yuna shook her head. Lu Yuan stroked his forehead as he said, What I'm saying is that I like beautiful women, but that's only because I admire beautiful things, and it's not that kind of love between a man and a woman. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand. Gu Yuna nodded and said, So you're saying that I'm beautiful because you admire my beauty, but you don't like me? That's right. Lu Yuan nodded. Then why don't you like me? Gu Yuna asked. Lu Yuan. So be it, let's not continue this topic. Lu Yuan stroked his forehead, and he was feeling a little weary. Like you? I fell in love with you the first time we met? What kind of person would that make me? Lu Yuan thought to himself. However, he had to admit that Gu Yuna's exquisitely beautiful features were extremely pleasing to the eye. By the way, why do you want to see me? Or do you have something that you want me to do? Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuna with a serious expression. A faint smile appeared on Gu Yuna's face at the sight of the confusion in Lu Yuan's eyes, and her smile was devastatingly beautiful. She turned to Lu Yuan and asked, "Do you know where your golden dragon bloodline came from?" Lu Yuan shook his head in response. Gu Yuna smiled and said, "It's normal that you don't know. After all, you were only an infant at the time, and you hadn't even opened your eyes yet. I'll have to start from the battle of the divine realm." Gu Yuna sighed with a bleak expression. War of the gods? Lu Yuan trembled when he heard this. He naturally knew a little about this matter. However, his heart was somewhat moved when he saw Gu Yuna's bleak expression. It was also after the War of the Divine Realm that the soul beasts were slowly reduced to their current state under the secret suppression of the gods. Even if they cultivated to 1,000,000 years, such as the deep-sea magic whale king, they were still rejected from the divine realm. In the end, it was schemed against by the sea god and the Azura god, and became Tang San's soul ring. Of course, Lu Yuan didn't care about the fate of the deep-sea monster whale king. He just casually mentioned it. However, Lu Yuan had to admit that the fate of the soul beasts was indeed unfair, but there was nothing he could do about it. The strong preyed on the weak, and he had no choice but to admit that they were the ones who had lost to the soul beasts. If the soul beasts had won back then, the humans might have been the ones enslaved now. After all, the soul beasts were in charge, and Lu Yuan didn't think that the fate of humans would be any better. The war between races was just that cruel. Thus, he felt some sympathy for the soul beasts, but that was all. Gu Yuna said, "Back then, the gods of the divine realm suppressed us soul beasts in every possible way. The dragon god couldn't bear to see us being bullied, so he led the soul beasts to resist the rule of the divine realm committee. However, the gods of the divine realm were too powerful, and we were outnumbered. The 5 godly monarchs teamed up to deal with the dragon god. Although the dragon god was invincible, he couldn't take on the 5 of them alone. In the end, the Azura god ambushed him and sliced him in half. After the dragon god was sliced in half, he turned into 2 dragon monarchs, 1 gold and 1 silver. The silver dragon king is me, and the other is the golden dragon king, which is the origin of your golden dragon bloodline. During the war in the divine realm, our soul beasts suffered heavy casualties, especially the dragons. Almost all of our pure bloodlines were destroyed. The 9 dragon monarchs were all first-tier gods, but they were all killed by the gods of the divine realm. The golden dragon king was trapped in the divine realm, and I was the only one who escaped. I've been hiding under the Lake of Life in the Great Star Do Forest ever since. It's a pity that my injuries were too severe. Even after so many years, I've only recovered a little. If I want to fully recover, it'll take at least 20,000 years." Gu Yuna's voice was very calm, but the resentment and killing intent in her voice made Lu Yuan feel quite alarmed. Even though she was severely wounded, she was most likely still one of the most powerful beings on the entire Douluo continent. Anyone who hadn't reached the divine realm was most likely no match for her. Lu Yuan reckoned that even though Gu Yuna's powers had declined due to her severe injuries, she was still most likely comparable to a 3rd-tier god. If she recovered from her injuries, then it was very likely that she could become a 2nd-tier god or even a 1st-tier god. If she recovered from her injuries and regained her original strength, she would be in existence comparable to a divine king. Even if she could not defeat the god of destruction and the god of Azura, she would still be a divine king. A 1st-level god would not be able to compare to her. Lu Yuan's heart faltered slightly upon hearing this. Even though he was quite alarmed, he wasn't fearful. This was because Gu Yuna didn't harbor any ill will toward him. From the very beginning, she had been quite gentle toward him aside from releasing her aura. But what does this have to do with the origin of my bloodline? Lu Yuan asked. Gu Yuna smiled and said, "Do you know who's the most powerful being in our dragon clan aside from the Gold and Silver Dragon King and his 9 sons? Could it be the Black Dragon King who is in charge of the Dragon Tribe's law enforcement? Could it be the former Dragon King of Tion's tribe?" Gu Yuna shook her head and replied, "The Black Dragon King is quite powerful, but there's a being who's even more powerful than him. This being is comparable in power to the 9 Dragon Kings, and it was also a first-tier god." "Who is it?" Lu Yuan asked. "The 2nd-generation Golden Dragon, who possesses the purest Golden Dragon King bloodline. He's also the previous master of your bloodline," Gu Yuna replied. "What?" Hearing this, Lu Yuan could not help but exclaim. Gu Yuna continued at the sight of Lu Yuan's astonishment. "Back when I fled to the Divine Realm, he was the only one who returned with me. However, his injuries were far too severe, and even with the immense life force energy of the Lake of Life, he was only able to prolong his feeble existence for a few more days. After persevering for so many years, he still reached the end of his life 10 years ago." 10 years ago? Lu Yuan's heart trembled upon hearing this. He had a feeling that what was about to happen next had something to do with him. On that day, he reached the end of his life, and his bloodline began to dissipate. His divine power began to crumble, and his consciousness also began to disintegrate. I could only look on, but there was nothing I could do to help him. Gu Yuna's voice was tinged with a hint of helplessness and remorse. She hated herself for being so powerless as she watched another pure-blooded dragon perish before her eyes. However, Gu Yuna's tone suddenly changed as she spoke. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."